I'm Tom Benner. I am a member of...
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. I'm Tom Benner, and I am a member of the Mile High Exchangors in Denver, and I have been there a long time, way too long actually, and I've been a member of this group for a long time, and in fact, I was president about 10 years ago during the crash, you might say.
Oh, you're the one that caused it.
Yes,
Yes.
right, that's right, I'm the one that caused it. Anyway, we're going to talk about, first of all, is there anyone here who has never attended? Good, okay. And is it fair to say that you people who have never attended are in commercial real estate or residential or both, or what? Go ahead.
I'm in both.
You're both, okay. Ma'am? I can't hear you.
Mainly commercial.
Okay, all right. We're going to tell you, sort of, show you how the way we do business here in this group is different from the normal brokerage. I'll give you an example. I'm being asked by Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we'll call them, to list a property. It was listed before and it never sold. And it was listed for $500,000. And I'm having a conversation with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and my first question would be, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Can you tell me why the property didn't sell? Well, the guy put a sign in front, he had it advertised and everything, but for some reason, we don't think he did a very good job anyway, and for some reason, it didn't sell. Okay. Now, let me ask you that, or tell you that we operate differently in that we involve you, the seller, in the transaction. And to do that, I need to ask you some personal questions. Would you have any objection me asking you some personal questions? And by the way, brokers are taught all over the country that that is irrelevant. You are told you are not to disclose people's motivation, right? You are told that's irrelevant, here's the property, here are the terms, take it or leave it. That's in essence what a broker does, other than market the property. The seller is never really involved. So we have the seller sign a special addendum to the sales to the listing contract, giving you permission to disclose everything about them that you will learn about them within the confines of this group and within the confines of the local exchange group. So they sign it and they say, right. How much do you owe against this property, Mr. Smith? I owe $200,000. The listing is for $500,000, right? Okay. Do you owe any money? Yeah, we owe $200,000. Do you have the loan documents here by any chance? Or do you have a copy of the mortgage or the deed of trust and the note? Why do you want to know that? Well, I want to see who this is, and it'll become apparent later. Can someone assume that loan? Well, I don't know. It says here that it is due on sale. All right. And who is this loan to? Well, this was actually a loan from the seller 10 years ago when we purchased the property. His name is Dr. Joe, we'll call him. May I call Dr. Joe? Do I have your permission to call him? Yeah. What do you want to do that for? Well, I have some ideas. I'm calling Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe, I notice this is a 6% mortgage. Are you happy with your mortgage? Yeah. Frankly, I wish they wouldn't pay it off because I like 6% and it's in my retirement plan. And there's nowhere else where I can get 6%. Okay. If and when we sell this property, would you be willing to add more money? In other words, would you be willing to lend more money against this property? Like another $200,000, so it'll be a $400,000 mortgage? Oh, I never thought about that. Actually, I like that. I said, I could probably guarantee you 6%. But if you like the new purchaser and everything is to your satisfaction, we now have a property that has a purchase price or an asking price of $500,000, only requires $100,000 down without bank qualifying. You know, we've just asked one stupid question and one went a little further than most people would. I'm in the loan business, and I developed my loan business that way, and I would go a step further with Dr. Bob, whatever I call him, and say, do you have more money? Would you like to lend money on more properties, on some other deals? He said, well, you know, I've never thought about it, but I'm getting tired of getting 1% or 2%. That is, by the way, a golden opportunity in today's world where interest rates are so ridiculously low and people are constantly searching for yield. What a hell of an easy way to finance properties and such, and to develop a stable of Dr. Joe's. You don't have to ask too many questions, and you're going to have a stable this long. I'm telling you. Anyway, we're now going to market the property. But before we do that, we're going to ask some more questions. Why are you guys selling? What are you going to do with the money? May I ask? Well, we don't really know. We're hoping, we're moving to Arizona, and this will help us in our retirement. Okay. Have you considered the tax consequences of what you're doing? Well, we talked to our accountant. He's kind of scaring us, and we don't really know. We may owe as much as $75,000. Okay. Are you prepared to pay that if necessary? Yeah, we really don't want you. So what are you going to do with the money when I sell the property? Well, I guess we're going to stick it in the bank. Do you own a house in Arizona yet? No, our daughter lives there, and we don't quite know what we're going to do. Okay. Do you get the picture? I keep asking, and I keep asking. Most people are squeamish. Most brokers don't want to go that far with strangers, you know. They say, well, I got the listing, and they say they'll trade, whatever that means. And they go to a marketing meeting. Or they put it on LoopNet or wherever. And now that they have seller financing available and that they have some form of knowledge about these people, we can go a step further. Say, you know, if you were to sell this property on credit yourself, you could defer your taxes for a while, depending on how long the loan is. Oh, how does that work? And he explained all that. Most people who will stand up on the podium today, or tomorrow rather, they stumble when we ask them these questions. It is an art that you have to develop. Have you ever asked questions like that of yourself? I forgot your name, I'm sorry.
I'm Rob.
Hi, Rob. Have you ever asked all kinds of questions like that of yourself?
I ask a lot of things of myself.
You asked a lot of things, what?
I ask a lot of questions myself, especially when shaving.
Good for you. Okay, okay. It is a acquired habit, you know. I remember a long time ago when my kids were teenagers, my daughters were teenagers, and they would bring boys home. And my daughters would be squirming because I asked too many questions. If you ask permission and you tell the people why, there really is no reason why you shouldn't be willing to do that. Are there any questions at this stage, please?
I have a question for
Okay.
you, Tom. And I think and this is for a lot of young people that maybe aren't comfortable asking those kinds of questions
Correct.
of their
Why don't
clients.
you grab a microphone when you ask?
Thank you, Blake. So this question is really to help those who are very uncomfortable asking the uncomfortable
Yes,
questions. Because
correct.
you really have to get comfortable with that.
Correct.
So perhaps maybe you can share with your experience what allows you to become comfortable asking the uncomfortable questions
Right.
that can maybe help them ask those uncomfortable
Well,
questions.
I have, of course, the benefit of being old.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And if you are much younger and you ask some 60-year-old how much he's got in the bank, that is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You need to set the stage. And you need to explain what you're going to do and how you're going to share this information, if needed, with a group of professionals who have come from all over the country to discuss these issues and to find a solution to his challenge, if you will. I don't want to use the word problem because it's not really a problem he's got. Yes, Brian?
Yeah, normally when I ask somebody of that realm, it's we do things a little bit differently, and I belong to a different group that specializes in these types of challenges. Is this something you would allow me to ask you a few questions
Right.
to help guide you down that path? So I
Right, you need
ask
to set the
permission for-
stage.
yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Any other questions? Yes, Chuck?
In my career, I have found that when you set the stage and you ask the question respectfully and tell them what you're going to do, that they're amazed because they have never thought of that stuff. And
Correct.
I've had sellers say, wow, nobody has ever asked me those questions. That is great. And you just open their mind to things
Yes.
that they have never thought about.
That would be the ideal scenario.
And
That's
they will
right.
help you after that.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
Another way I heard it years ago is that how many here go into the doctor's office and immediately take off your clothes?
Right. It's the
Pretty
same
much.
thing.
It's exactly the same thing. Now think about that. A strange man you've never met before and you're taking off your clothes. And yeah, the hardest part is,
Taking off your socks.
yeah, the hardest part, yeah, that's it. For you and me today, that's for sure. The hardest part is for the broker to understand how they get to that position with the client,
Right.
you know?
That's right.
And you're just basically taking off their financial clothes
Right.
one step at a time.
And in fact, they aren't even your client yet until you decided to work with them after you received all the answer to all these questions. Because it's for you to decide if you want to deal with these people. You know, sometimes you will get a potential seller or potential client who says, you know, I'm uncomfortable telling you this. I say, you know, I'm uncomfortable dealing with you, in effect.
Right.
I cannot represent you unless I know the whole story. Your property didn't sell last time because it was marketed in a conventional manner, and now it is. I'm trying to do something different and unique. And counseling, what everybody talks about, you can't counsel unless you know the facts. Okay, Blake is going to continue. Where's Blake?
I guess we're done.
Yeah, I guess we're done with this. Yeah, right. Keep going.
There you go. Can you guys hear me all right? Okay, so Tom was supposed to wait till at least to a slide or two in before he starts talking, but that's all right. Today, our purpose of talking to you today is to sort of a substitute for our basic class that we don't offer in the summer and January meetings. This is to get all of you who are new to the group and those of you who have been here a long time comfortable with each other, the new people to be comfortable with the process and the rest, and really to open up the dialogue so the more experienced people can share with the newer people. I shouldn't say younger, it's all relative. The newer people, because that's what we want to do. You have a lot of mentors in this room already who are going to take, answer questions for you. Feel free to reach out. A certain number of people in here have quite a bit of experience. More people are new and just learning in the group right now. Equity Marketing Basics is what we've decided to name this short course, just 3-hour course, nothing comprehensive. AKA ask questions, because as you've seen with Tom and when he does his seller carry financing, we have a 1031 paper channel on YouTube that has his longer class, but Tom's all about asking the questions, and that is the way to get answers. First step in any real estate endeavor is to ask questions. This is what Tom started you with right there. And whenever you run into a client, we call them client applicant because they're not a client yet. You haven't decided that you're going to serve them yet. You have to ask them questions to help decide whether or not you really want to serve them. Okay, basics. Counseling. The two basic things of equity marketing are counseling and formulas. Okay, and these are some of the things that, besides all the regular stuff we do as buy-sell real estate brokers, the counseling and formulas are what sort of distinguish Exchangors from everybody else. Counseling is asking questions, listening, and doing your best to understand your client. Formulas are methods of delivering benefits through real estate transactions. These are the basics of the equity marketing, of how we do and what the difference between what we do and everybody else. Okay, so today's discussion will be, this is the format, the outline for today's course. We're going to go to noon talking about this, and then in the afternoon, Steve Streetman will be teaching us about cryptocurrency and real estate. Part of why we had this course, because if you've come to NCE for the first time and the only course you had was cryptocurrency and real estate, you may kind of not get the regular picture of what we do all the time. So in order to do your marketing here at NCE, we ask questions, okay? Tom's gone over that. We get the information, okay, and the listing, of course, okay? We go here and we place our order, we identify the takers, we ask more questions, we apply the formulas, and we close more deals this way, okay? That's filling the order. I'll go through what each of these mean as we go through. Okay, disclosure, I like this slide. All of what we're talking about is real estate held for investment. These formulas do not apply to owner-occupied housing, okay? So your regular residential thing. We're not attorneys or tax experts, and you really shouldn't listen to us at all about anything, and we take no responsibility for your further actions. Future actions. If you guys do something in the future, it's not my fault or Tom's fault. It's your fault. Okay. Before the meeting, okay, what's essential? And if you're here and you don't have a listing with the motivations, right to disclose the motivations, that's okay. This is your first meeting, okay? We're not going to disclose, you're probably not going to be able to disclose some of the things without getting with your clients and saying, hey, can I answer these questions? But we want you to know what you should do before the meeting so that next meeting you're prepared. You ask the questions and you get the information and you get the listing, you get the rest of the stuff. You put together the package, we'll go over that. During the meeting, you're going to place your order. You're going to stand up here at this very podium and you're going to tell people out here what you want for what you've got, okay? You're going to identify who might take it. That's when the questions really begin. We apply the formulas. And after the meeting, we're going to close more deals. And I've closed deals with a lot of people in this room, and we do close a lot more deals than I'd say your average real estate community. Okay, counseling before the meetings. Really get to know your client, all right? During the meeting, we have a moderator. You're going to present at the podium and the moderator is going to ask you questions, all right? You're only going to have a few minutes to get out all this information. So it's good for you in your head to know what's the most important salient facts that you want to put out as far as facts, and also how to express what it really is that this client is looking for. Who is this client and where are they going? A lot of times, the age of the client is important. Normally we think demographics and things aren't necessarily appropriate to talk about in real estate. They're absolutely appropriate to talk about in this context. Because someone who looks like that, okay? And then someone who looks like one of these young people have a lot of offsetting benefits, okay? Tom doesn't want to go into a new piece of real estate, but he'd like to lend you money and earn interest, okay? If you want to buy real estate, here's your guy, okay? And that's how the offsetting benefits. The goal of the moderator is to make the presentation the best that it can be, to focus on the benefits offered by the property and its ownership, and to identify takers. Some properties are great, everybody in the world wants them. Some properties aren't great, and people don't just want them just by putting them up here. It's our job to make it the best package possible and to give it the best chance, okay? And as we go through some of this, you'll see what the inventory is. The benefits that we think of in traditional commercial real estate of cap rates and internal rate of return and all those are some benefits. Appreciation, depreciation, all that stuff that we're used to. But generally, we have a lot of intangible benefits. Those sets of benefits don't explain why Tom might not want a property that I want, okay? It's gonna be the same property. We have different stages of life, different sets of benefits. This is exactly what Tom was talking about. Some clients are easier to counsel than others, right? Some can't be counseled. Don't work with them. Your services are better than most of your fellow licensees. Your services are not available to those people. That's just the way that it is. Don't work with them. Don't, you're too busy. You got another one. There's someone else who needs you. You're a public servant, okay? If they're a jerk, they don't need to be served. Okay, this is getting to what Hal was talking about. A doctor asks questions of the patient, okay? If you lie to your doctor, how smart is that, okay? You're the doctor for these clients. If they lie to you, you ain't gonna cure them. You might kill them, right? The same thing happened with the doctor. You tell some doctor something wrong, he might give you a medicine that kills you. He didn't mean to. It was based on false information. Why would our clients expose themselves like this? Why would they be willing to tell us to take off their financial clothes? And the answer is, when Ted Blank's the one who I learned it from, it's the doctor example that Hal just said. When a man our age walks into a room, takes all his clothes off, lies down on the table, and knows what's coming, why would he ever do that? No circumstance in the world does that happen, except the doctor has a white coat on. He's a professional. We all know that he's gonna take care of us. He's not, there's no nefarious purposes. That's the kind of professionalism you want to seek in order to get your clients to share this information, okay? If they don't think you're a person that is worthy, they don't see you like your pediatrician or your physician, you know, they're not, you're just wasting your time. So get the level of professionalism, get an understanding or rapport, like Chuck's saying, with them, so that they're comfortable taking their clothes off. And that's as far as we need to go with that.
There used to be a member of the Exchangors a million years ago who went a step further. You know, we've become more relaxed in our clothing, for instance. He would say to potential customers, because that's all they were, customers, he would force them to come to his office. And just like an attorney, he would say, when do you people come to my office to discuss your situation, rather than him going with his little briefcase up to their property when it's convenient for them to see you. Turn it around.
And let me tell you, I just recently made the same mistake, as you know, that with a client recently I had to fire because they, and I did make the mistake because of their prestige in the community or whatever, to actually go over to their house. And that's always a mistake, okay? Have them come to your office. Don't go to their house to do the listing or the property to do the listing. You have them come to your office, interview, decide whether or not you want to work with them, irregardless of anything to do with their property. And then, if you've decided that you can work together, then we start to talk about the property.
Most people now work out of, many people work out of their home, from home and all that, and that is fine. There are services out there where you can rent offices that are very inexpensive.
What Bob Steele said, and what I found very good, is most of our towns have a luxury hotel. Most of those towns have a 4-star nice hotel with a really nice lobby. They really don't mind business people sitting in their lobby talking business, okay? You just set an appointment with that client. If you don't have a really nice Class A office that's gonna blow their boots off, you go have them, Colorado Springs, we go meet them at the Broadmoor, okay? You sit them down, they're in this wealthy, affluent environment. We're in the, we have the right environment, we're thinking the right direction with that, but you're the professional, you interview them, okay? What I say with, for just house listings, people say, oh, want me to come over and tell them how much their house is worth? So I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna tell you what I think your house is worth until you're a client. Because if I might have a buyer in this market interested in your house, and you don't take me as a listing agent, what did I do to that client, that buyer? I told you what I think your house is worth. Okay, I heard this potential buyer that I haven't even met yet. Okay, so, and the other thing I tell them, and this, we have to be careful how we say it. I say, if you're considering other brokers to come and do the same thing, please take them. Because if they're good enough for you, if that's all you need, please take them. And the thing you're not supposed to say, and it's really hard to buy things, they probably need the business more than I do. Okay? We're not allowed to say that. But that is, that's the implication, is that there are, if someone wants to sell a house, there's everybody out there who can do it.
Well,
Okay?
can I also,
Yeah.
to what Blake is saying, by creating a barrier or a boundary and not just chasing a client, right? You're eradicating.
Chasing a customer.
Yeah, well, chasing a prospect.
That's right.
They're a prospect. And it really, you're creating a status also, which is also going to create a wanting by the prospect, right? And it's a better way of doing things, because by interviewing them, it's going to set you apart from all of the other realtors that are just going to bark at every beck and call of a potential client, which is going to give them the control, the client, the prospect.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, you're going to really save your time, which is our most valuable thing. And like what Blake was saying, you don't give them your opinion on value unless you come to the conclusion that you're going to work with them, because we're in the business of information and relationships.
Right. Only when you're gonna put the price, when they're signing the listing agreement, we have to put a price on it. That's when we actually get to the point where we talk about price. One thing that reminded me that Demetrius said, and again, we're getting a little off track, but that's why we have these slides to help keep us going. But there's a human phenomenon my dad pointed out to me a long time ago. People like to give money to those who don't need it. It's just what we are as people. We can't explain it. It's terrible. It's a pathetic human trait. We all want to give money to people who don't need it. Okay, the rich guy, can he buy a drink? Usually not. Okay, it's people buy the drink for him. Elon Musk walks in here. Is he going to pay for any liquor? You're not going to pay for any liquor. You're going to buy him a drink. You don't need a drink. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. When you go to the nice hotel, or you have them come to your nice office, or you sit down with them and all, if you're hungry, and you can see the hunger in your eyes, it's really hard to be as successful as you want to be. If you're hungry, you got it, and you got to hide it. You got to put on airs.
It's the neediness. What happens is people want to run away from that which chases them.
Right.
So let's
Like
switch gears back again. Let's talk
Like
about
dating.
why people do things. Okay, and this is so most of our listing agreements, we're not allowed to talk about motivations. We need to have other clauses in there that say we're allowed to discuss your motivations, including the right to your willingness to sell the price for less than the full price in the context of equity marketing meetings for the sole purpose of getting a beneficial transaction, not to go slander the people and to go talk all around town. Okay, so that's just beside there. Say, what drives the market? Motivations drive the market. Like we said, we've never seen a property get up and sign a deed or a deed of trust. It's people who do it. And people do things because they're motivated to do things. You ask personal questions. This is what Tom's talking about when we talk about the doctor thing, okay? You ask the questions that are uncomfortable. Why will they answer them? Because you're a professional. This is, part of it's before, but then once you have signed that listing agreement, you really get into that. We can't discuss them without permission, obtain permission to disclose your client's motivations. Discussing benefits sought and motivations leads to more benefits offered, okay? Do you understand what we're talking about there? If a person, an example we're gonna get to later with Chuck, you got a piece of land that's a paper subdivision, You know, what are the benefits in it? Not a lot of benefits in a paper subdivision, okay? Maybe if you can build it all up, finish it out, sell houses, there are benefits. If you're not a developer, there aren't. But why are you doing it? And what else can you do? And what's your motivation? How much will you add to it in order to make the deal happen? So you may decide that actually that paper subdivision is what you need when you come to this marketing session, even though nobody needs it. Because what you need is a sack of cash. And it's much more likely a sack of cash comes with a paper subdivision than a sack of cash comes with a, 8-cap triple net Walgreens. Okay, you're not gonna get a sack of cash with it. Okay, do your job, okay? Get information, do your job. You still need to do the job of every broker. Assemble marketing materials, plant a sign, put your religious icons out there and pray if that's what you do. Advertise. We owe it to everybody to turn them all to cash if cash is available. Cash is easy. Cash helps the flow of capital from one person to another. Cash was invented for a reason, even though it has no intrinsic value. We do not just trade to trade. It's all about trading for a better set of benefits, whatever the vehicle. The vehicle can be cash, okay? Selling things for cash is a formula. The person found this pile of $100 bills more beneficial than the deed to this property. The other person found the deed to this property more beneficial than that pile of $100 bills. Why? Because they're different. They're different people, okay? Now it's back to my buddy here. We got questions to ask.
Well, let me first tell you how I learned.
We got questions too.
Oh,
Prompt you.
All right. Why do you want to sell? Well, you're going to get a variety of answers, right? And some surprising answers. And it's a question that is a normal question, but for some reason, half the people who list property don't even ask that. Many moons ago, back in the Stone Age, actually before the Stone Age, my first job, I was a 20-year-old management trainee for a small loan company. Just before the internet, before credit bureaus, before any of this. And we had to make loans to these people. So we had an office on the second floor somewhere above a shopping center. And people would sneak up on their lunch hour, step up the steps, so no one would see them, because borrowing money was kind of not thought well of. And they would face me, 20-year-old kid. And I had to ask all the questions and decide and recommend to make this loan. Well, when you have no information to call on, you have no credit bureau, nothing, you start asking the real questions. Mr. Jones, you're 45 years old, and you're married to this 29-year-old. How many times were you married before? These were all personal, really asked personal questions, and of course it was easier because they came to borrow money. Well, I was married once before. I see, how much did you owe in child support? You ask these specific questions that they aren't thinking about, and he would say, well, how much is your child support? And we went on and on and on and on. They are questions that today, you wouldn't ask, but that's how I started. That was my early training. Anyway, what is our next issue here? What will you do with the money? That is a normal question, right? May I ask what you're going to do with this money when I sell this property? When this property is sold, you're going to get $300,000. What are you going to do with it? You're going to pay the IRS first. We've already discussed this. You're going to owe $75,000. That's what your CPA told me, because you had asked me, or I had asked you for the name of your accountant. And I had permission from you to talk to the accountant. Well, we don't really know yet. You're going to get some form of answer, and well, why do you want that money? we're going to retire, and we're going to live off that money. Because we think we can live fairly modestly, we think we can find a cheap place there in Mesa, Arizona, and we want to live out of it. But you're not going to get any interest. Have you thought about that? You can develop either a lender for something, or they could become a lender on their own property, or you could then bring up the idea of exchanging for something else without tax consequences perhaps, and creating an income somewhere, somehow. Not all that difficult. And, well, it says information leads to deals. Well, once you ask all these questions, you'll be talking to several people, right? To the CPA, to maybe their attorney, the mortgage holder, the doctor, what's his name? That is very, very helpful to you. And that is the way to prospect for new customers at the same time, right? I mean, come on. You don't really need to call strangers. There are already people who know what you're doing. If you call this Dr. P who holds the mortgage, what does he think of you? He thinks, oh, this guy's pretty slick, you know? Dr. P, do you own any property? And on and on and on. There's never an end to it. What do you think, partner?
I agree. No, for sure. And the other one you skip those, the who are they and where are they going? Okay, so each person is, people are really unique in different stages of your life, and really figuring that out is a big part of it. One question I ask people a lot, and it's a pretty strange thing sometimes to ask people. I do it the same when I interview students for Columbia University sometimes. It's a way to get things that they don't often volunteer in front. And, I'll tell them, so you know, we'll have a conversation. Here's this real estate guy got you sitting on the couch, you know, counsel and stuff, and I say, tell me about your parents.
Yeah.
Okay? Listen to someone describe their mom and their dad, their situation that they grew up with. By the time they're done with that conversation, in half an hour, 45 minutes later, you really know that person, okay? Because we're products of our parents, okay? We're a combination of your parents. I ask, tell me about your parents. What am I asking you to tell me about?
One of the easiest ways to get them to talk about themselves is to tell them something intimate about yourself.
Right.
Some snippet, like I like to tell people who are in financial difficulty. You know, when I filed bankruptcy in 1989, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, it's true. And secondly, it really is an intimate revelation that I look to be successful and blah, 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 I have all this going. But the fact is, I was in your position, I was bankrupt in 1989.
Yeah.
That'll open up all kinds of information that they will tell you, because you've told them something about yourself that is not
Made it personal.
You're starting to undress yourself so they feel comfortable to undress them.
That's right.
Right, so yeah, by making it personal, letting them know you're who you are. And then the other thing is when you sign a listing agreement with somebody, and this is just my own soapbox a lot of times, we're public servants, okay? It's not a privilege to go have somebody sign a listing agreement. It's an obligation, it's a duty to do a job. And when they get that dynamic, that we're not anxious to go sign up to do a really hard job, but we'll do a really hard job if we're compensated and if they cooperate, it just changes the whole dynamic. And again, like I say, when you're sitting there on the couch, if they're not cooperative, if they're not someone to be counseled, there's the door, okay? And you just let them know that, you need me a lot more than I need you. Now again, temper it, you don't need to go broke. All right, when we get to the meeting, okay, now you've gotten all the information, you've collected stuff, you put your listing together, you got it advertised out there on every electronic thing, you put in the NCE book, you're bringing your package to the meeting, okay? Jason Dillard, a great exchanger from South Carolina, says everyone presenting at a market session is really just placing an order on behalf of their client. It's like you walked up to McDonald's and said, give me a burger, here's what I got. Will you buy it? Okay? What are the benefits sought? What do they want, a burger? What are they offering? Money, okay? You want to identify what it is that you're offering and what it is you want. Without asking questions and without assembling the information, a rhetorical question, how can you possibly do this?
And to reiterate, if you're new and you brought a package and you know that you don't know all the questions that we're sort of encouraging to ask, don't be embarrassed.
No.
We won't embarrass you. This will be a good learning experience for the next time you'll come back better prepared.
And that is why all the meetings are confidential, okay? We can record this class, we're not gonna be recording the meeting, okay? If something about a motivation were to slip out in the conversation, nobody's gonna jump and make sure that, they call the regulatory agency and punish you, okay? The whole benefit we're trying to do is help you climb. And so you do the best you can with what you've got, and if you need to say, I can't talk about that now, that's okay. That's a perfectly legitimate answer. Follow up with that when you know you can talk about that. Like a divorce is a classic situation, okay? If it's a situation where you're not to tell about the divorce in a traditional sales thing, and you haven't talked to them about it, that's a tough one here to bring up. But here, that's what we specialize in, okay? We know if there's a divorce, we can probably make a deal. And it's not because we are a bunch of vultures who think now the price of the property went to half. No, it's we know we have two really motivated people, right? They want nothing in the world other than to be away from that other person, okay? And so those are motivations and about benefits. So know your stuff, okay? It used to be, and this is what happens in smaller groups a lot of times, people put the black hat on. So we have black hatters or white hatters, or the guy with the white hat says real positive things, the black hat from the movies tells you, asks you all these tough questions that, try and sink your ship. Well, that's not what we're trying to do. Know your stuff, respect the room. If you don't know it, it's okay. I don't know is a perfectly legitimate answer. All righty? Okay. Packages, and feel free to interrupt anytime you want. Packages, why we call them packages instead of property listings, is a package is a set of benefits. A package involves not just the property, but also the people and what else they can do, okay? Make sure you understand each part of the package form, including benefits offered, which I emphasize a little more. Know how to input into the system, okay? If any of you don't know how to put your package into the system, I'm not gonna sidetrack and show everybody how to do it right here. Let us know. We will go either with Kara or any of the rest of us. Asher can help you, Demetrius, any of the rest of us can help you. We want to make sure if you've got a listing that should be in the book, a package that should be in the book, we want to make sure it's in the book, or in the system at least, so that we can identify it and the rest of us can go out and find it. Even if you just have, this is what it is, here's the address, a couple things, a little bit gets it started. Provide as much info as you can, okay? If you can't, you can't. You must have a listing or control. Please don't bring a listing here and make a package or even talk about it if you just heard that your buddy wants you to bring this package to the meeting. I know it happens all the time, not appropriate, okay? Present the people an opportunity as well as the property, but mostly the benefits, why somebody wants to own this. Mr. Streetman.
So Blake, when you say benefits,
Yes.
right? I think a lot of people get confused about who the benefits are for, and which
Okay.
benefits and what are benefits versus desires.
Okay, so Steve's asking, saying, when I talk about benefits, some people may wonder who the benefits are for, who's delivering them, who's receiving them, and the answer is sort of an all of the above, okay? We have to present, no transaction will ever close unless both parties think that they're getting a better set of benefits afterwards than they had before. Our job is to identify how wonderful these sets of benefits are, okay?
And in today's climate, and I mean low interest climate, and I'm always more, I lean towards the financial of the deal, that's my nature. When you receive cash, I know, what are you going to do with it? It is better to have a house even today, in today's fast appreciating market, than just having cash. And that didn't used to always be the case, right? Not all that many years ago, it says, give me cash, man, I need it.
They didn't used to print cash like they have recently.
Right.
When you print a lot of cash, people buy land. Sold more land since they started printing cash than I've ever sold in my life, okay? That's what happens. We're in a weird environment. Never been so much money in the market in any of our lives. You ever know so much money?
I've never seen anything like this, although close to it.
Yeah.
It's different. And nobody here knows the future. Nobody. Not even Blake.
I know it's uncertain.
Right, there you go, right.
So,
So
and
things
we all,
are different.
yeah, we all want to think about that. So this gets back to another thing my dad always told me: all the skill and airmanship in the world don't beat dumb luck. Okay, the market is dumb luck. Okay, the things I've owned in Colorado Springs that I bought in 2006, every one of them that I've sold in 2021 tripled in value. Okay, not anything to do with my intelligence. Got nothing to do with me. Okay, it's dumb luck. In Colorado Springs, things tripled in value in the last 15 years. That's just the way that it is. Okay, so you want to set up so that you ride that dumb luck just fine, but you can't control that. And so just don't, like I say, don't pat yourself on the back and what a genius you are, because, you know, if you're doing that, you ought to be kicking yourself when the market goes down, and don't do that here. So
I used to be a real estate genius.
yeah, and then the market crashed.
Yeah.
Correct.
89
Yeah.
taught you.
And that's why I was saying it's
81, yeah, right, and all that, and 89.
Right.
I once, in 1977, I bought 40 houses. And suddenly they all went up. And I thought I was an absolute genius.
And then 1989, you
It
felt
took
like
10 years to work my way out of it, right? Right.
Then you became.
And that will come again. Those times somehow, some way will come back.
yeah, it's not.
We need to
there will
be
a
prepared
time
for that.
when the market corrects 50% again.
And those will be better times for people in the exchange group.
Absolutely, your clients are going to need a lot of help then. You're a public servant. You're going to be so much better to serve them when the market stinks than when it's great like this. Anyway, back to the slides. Be prepared to provide backup information. Okay, this is due diligence stuff. You can provide everything you can now, but if you don't, you say, hey, that's due diligence stuff. It can be due diligence stuff. Just know that we don't just mysteriously trust that there's nothing wrong with the property, and we don't suddenly throw out all that stuff we have done with real estate always when we go look at something we're buying from a stranger, okay? You still do the same things as you would then. Bottom line, I say, bring your paper from the book with you when you come to the podium, and bring an ink pen, okay? So that you can write the numbers that are yelled out to you on the your piece of paper that goes back in your notebook with your scribblings on it, because then it'll give a recollection of the experience and also helps you keep track of all of your numbers. So I'll get into the numbers for people who aren't familiar with that yet as far as what we do.
Did you start, or the canons? Here we go.
Canons, yeah. You want to talk
I,
about
in my
canons?
little talk, did not talk about, I did not ask the customer, well, they weren't clients yet, what else they owned. And it's a magic question. And in a little bit, I'll discuss that further when I tell you about the deal I did with Blake a couple years ago.
Right, so the, yeah, absolutely, is, what else do you own is a huge thing, okay? The, just like the question about inheritance, okay? They may have you helping them with a little triplex in a bad part of town, and you're working with it. If there's somebody who that's their only asset, and that's just, they sweated it, and this is their couple $100,000 they got in the world, that's a different person than the guy who also owns the $10 million shopping center at the end of the block, okay? Just different people, not saying one's better than the other, it's just different ways you're gonna deal with them, okay? And it's important. So the can ads, this is other things people can throw into a deal to get you to take it, okay? I have my, I'm reluctant to use my dog poo story because of my bad language, but basically I tell people a lot of times, if I got a bag full of something that nobody wants, a bag of dog poo, and I go and I say, hey Chuck, you want it? He'll say, no, I don't want that. Why would I want that? It's a bag of dog poo, I have to throw it away. So shoot, okay, well, how about if I just reach in my pocket and get a $50 bill out, and I stick a piece of scotch tape to it and stick to that bag, set that bag down, now do you want it? Chuck says, heck yeah, I'll get paid $50 to take that bag to the trash. Okay, that's a can ad. $50 can ad to a bag of dog food. Anyone will take it, okay, because of the $50 bill. Got nothing to do with the bag of dog food, you'll just throw it away. Okay, can ads a lot of times drive the deal. Jim Wilson likes to talk about the difference between can ads and will ads. The guy who owns a $10 million free and clear shopping center, he can ad it, but he won't. Okay, if it's a can ad, but it ain't a will ad, you say, this is what they have, they're probably not gonna add it. Okay, but it is still good for us all to know the horsepower of the people. A must take is a can ad that you gotta take, okay? Or a primary package, okay? The bag of dog food. I'm not going to give you that $50 bill unless you must take the bag of dog food, because I don't want to have it here, I want to take it out to the street, okay? So you must take it to get the $50 bill, okay? That's pretty straightforward. Anything else you want to say about must takes?
No, that's fine.
Sometimes the will ad can drive the deal, okay? There's cash always makes a great can ad. There are always people, even though it's a depreciating asset, nobody should ever want it. 4-letter word, they still, you put it with your package and miraculously it goes. That's a lemonade formula. So you take lemons, you add a little sweetener to it. Everyone will drink some lemonade. Not most people will drink squeezed lemon juice. You can always create paper. When we say paper, we're talking about notes, deeds, and trusts, mortgages, leases, any kind of instrument that requires a person to pay money to another person.
Maybe this is a good time for me to tell them about our deal.
Okay, well, let's go to the next, because I have a feeling that's next. Okay, I'm going through our little outline of what we're doing now. We're identify takers. This is the primary function of why we are here. Identify someone who will take your property under any terms and conditions, okay? Who will take my property? I didn't say give me my price. I didn't say give me what I want, okay? Who is a taker for the property with something, okay? Who can find a way to take it under some terms and conditions, okay? The bag of dog food example, you'll take it if it comes with $50. Everyone in the room, okay? This is what I tell people, say, why'd you lie to me when you tell me you didn't want it? Everyone in this room is a taker for that bag of dog food, okay? Because of the $50 bill, right? When we go up and I present just the bag of dog food without the $50 bill, a few people will give me their numbers. Those are the people who know it's gotta come with a $50 bill. Everybody, when I come up with a bag of dog food, packaged with no benefits, everybody in the room should pitch out their number. Because I'm gonna have to give you something to get you to take it, right? And so it's not about that, it's about Canada, an example. Anyhow, find a way to take the property under some terms and conditions. We should not care what they're takers with or why. This is the biggest problem in this room. The first step is to find a taker. You get a guy up here at the podium or a gal up here at the podium, and sometimes we're not supposed to do would you takes, but someone says, oh, what's your number? Oh, what is it? It's a house in Ottumwa, Iowa. No, my folks won't take it. All right, shut up, okay? Don't do that. You don't know. Their great aunt might live next door, okay? Because you didn't ask that question yet, because why would you? Okay, it's a part of the country you never even heard of, okay? They're a taker. Yes, we would love to see your offer. Please write it up on a mini form so we can remember, and I'm gonna take it to my client. When I get back to him, I'm gonna say, how can we take this house? Not, are you gonna take it? Could you take it? Would you take it? Do you want it? No. How can we take this house? What would they have to do for the rest of the deal to get this deal closed? Sketch that down, set it aside, get the next one. How can we take this deal? When you get through all of them, you're all gonna know which is gonna be the best one, the best set of benefits, because you all went through it. And then you'll have a pecking order, 1 or 2 or 3, as far as what they're gonna work. But don't care what they're takers with. You want a taker, okay? Once we've identified 1 or more potential takers, now we can get to work, okay? It's just preliminary until that stage. Now we can actually do something. Okay, how can my client be a taker for what is being offered? All right, I won't make Tom answer these because he's got the next thing. Okay, how can the taker take it? What benefits are sought by the taker? Why are they making me this offer? Okay, if it's a person you know needs money and they're pitching at my paper subdivision, you've got a pretty good idea. They're going to make me a mini offer that's going to tell me what they want. Is there a third leg in the room for what is being
I don't think we've discussed mini offers, by the way.
Okay.
Or some people may want to know what that is.
Yeah,
You
you're
need a
right.
long form?
Somebody skipped on that. So I'm going to go over a little bit about the taker numbers and the rest. We also have little pieces of paper, 2 different forms, one a little more detailed than the other, that we write up a little proposal and we send it to the other person. And those, ideally, everybody writes the mini offers. I can tell you right now and apologize, I'm always guilty. I pitch my number out all the time. I very rarely actually write the mini offer. I apologize, that's just the way it is. Bug me, write me a mini offer, or just say, please write me something down so I can take it home with them. But you're supposed to follow up every pitch with a mini offer. Steve?
So there are 2 different forms, a short one and a long one?
Correct, there are 2 forms.
I never really understood when I would use
Okay, a short one and a long one, and when would you use one versus the other? I get lazy and I use the short one because I can
That's
just
what
let it
I've
know.
always
If you do actually want to, and you've got a complicated deal in balanced equities where you have one property that has debt and equity, another property with debt and equity, real good to use the longer form, because then you can at least say, hey, we're off this much in equity, what are we gonna do? You know, how do we work that?
And
So,
don't be afraid to just write up, even if it's crazy.
right.
You know, it's sort of like dating. You know, you first want to have a coffee before you go buy that woman lunch or dinner.
Sometimes the note just says, call me. Right? And it gives her phone number. Yeah, but that's kind of what it is. So, you had a question, Val?
No, I was just gonna tell, Steve, normally the longer form is in the evening after you've set, after they
Yeah.
presented.
Would you repeat the question for the
So
audience?
sit down and you discuss and then
So,
you.
what Steve was asking about the difference between the forums and what Val was saying is, yes, generally, and this is the same thing, in the evenings is when you would spend the time probably to write the long form and put a bigger proposal. The mini form, you can just get ripped off during the meeting. And again, back to why I'm bad about writing minis. When I was doing these meetings, the first times I'd get a headache at the end of a long day, and then I'd go to my room and I'd write mini offers till 2 o'clock in the morning. I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I apologize to all of you. So, anyhow, forgive me. Third leg, and that made people think about the mini offer. I won't make people raise their hands here, but I'm sure there are people here who don't know what we refer to when you talk about a third leg, okay? And it's not something inappropriate from the internet. It is the third leg is when you have somebody says, I want your thing with my thing, but you don't want their thing. You need to find somebody who has something that you might take for what they have. Okay, and that's what we call an in lieu clause. Yes, I will accept your property, like Steve's gonna talk about cryptocurrency now. I would say, Steve, of course I will accept all of your cryptocurrency, subject to me finding something in lieu of the cryptocurrency. Okay, because I don't really want the crypto, but I would like to see what it could buy for me. And that's just a vehicle. The crypto, just like cash or a note, is now the vehicle for the exchange. Okay, because I want a third leg, I don't want that. Another really important question to ask people, and it shouldn't necessarily have been in this context here, but in general to your clients when they talk about the benefits sought, is this a need or a want? Okay? It's okay if it's a want in some cases if they've got the means. Sometimes people have needs and they try to identify wants. Okay? If you have a need, you got a need. Okay? You need us to solve that problem. The fact that you want this pretty thing, you don't need it, okay? We need to get you out of the problem. After we get you out of the problem, then we can talk about wanting the pretty thing, okay? Because one thing I say a lot is pretty costs money, and ugly makes money, okay? So, that's just another thing. Okay, next one. I think we're getting here, Tom, before we take a break. Okay, real quick, marketing session. We each have a number. We each bring packages which identify sets of benefits, and each one of those also has a number. So I'm usually 101 unless one of those Abbotts or Alexanders or one of those other people shows up. I'm just kidding, because my name's Alan. front of the alphabet. So I would say 101, I'll have 1 through 9. 101.5 would mean my 5th package is what I'm interested in your package with. If I just say 101 by itself, I'm interested in it, but I don't know what I'm going to be a taker with. The package is presented, the moderator asks the questions, the presenter answers, and then we take numbers. Okay, first of all, shut up when they're taking numbers, okay? Only talk to the moderator, and people from the audience only talk to the moderator. The moderator is the only one who talks to the person at the podium. We're not very good at following that rule, just say.
We work at it.
Yeah, we'll work on it. But then at the end, the idea is to take numbers and get numbers, the maximum number of numbers for this guy at the podium or gal at the podium that you can possibly get, because that gets them many more things to do. And if you, at the end of the meeting, they will send you a list of all the taker numbers for every package. That is a mine of deals. If you ever have a time, any of you, when you don't have more deals than you can do, you've got a notebook full of more deals than you can ever do. I've gotten to the point where I do not have that circumstance ever happen anymore, where I actually am going to look for a new deal. It's just a matter of what deal can we get to next. And that's, I'd like all of you to be in the same situation, because there's no reason not to. Yes, Spencer. Spencer asked, how do I do that? How do I decide what takes priority and the rest, okay? I wish I had a brilliant answer for you and told you this wonderful system I have. I don't know if you've seen the South Park method. You basically take a chicken, you cut its head off, you throw it out in the thing, and wherever it lands, that's the thing I do. That's, you know, it really is who's called you next.
It's like that with your life.
Right.
You gotta decide on which issue you're gonna
Right.
concentrate.
What are you gonna do a week from Thursday? You know, what are you gonna do a week from Thursday? None of us knows what the hell we're gonna do a week from Thursday unless we got it set on the calendar what we're gonna do a week from Thursday. So that's the problem. You might hit the nail on the head, Spencer. What's hard is to identify how do you prioritize this, and we all have to use the same systems we do. I don't do, you know, client resource management and all these other kind of things that I should do and people do, but yeah, I just, whatever's next. But it could be better. I could use help. Yes, Spencer?
So if you, through the, whatever, 2, 3, 5 years you've been coming here, if you drilled down like all this funnel, you're like, you know that, look, I'm probably not good at these things, but when these things come up, you know, you're mentally blocking them.
Could you?
So yeah, Spencer's asking
for the Zoom audience.
Yeah, Spencer's asking for, you know, with the years of me doing this and seeing the different funnel of things, are there things I think that are easier? Yes. And what I've discovered is I'm not really capable of handling new clients anymore. I don't have enough time for the number of clients, so I always co-op and partner with somebody else now. One quick kudos I can give Erica, and I just closed a week ago or so a deal in New Mexico, who was a New Mexico licensee from a client. Just split the thing. I'm here to help with the counseling and the rest of it. She does most of the work. Okay, so that's a way to work. So I'll co-op with people. That's usually how I prefer to do it. But as far as organizing, what I do is the old technique my dad has. You write everything down on 3x5 cards, and you put them on yellow pads, and you cross them out. I don't know how else to do it. So, alrighty, next. When the presentation is over, and we'll get this real quick, call for numbers. If you have any interest whatsoever, say your number, okay? That's just interested, without a package. If you think it would work for a particular package, call out that number. Super taker means I'm here, I'm ready to do the deal, I can sign a contract. If someone says they're super taker, that's the person you probably want to talk to because they probably really want it. And although then you'll get us all competing with super takers if there's a good package, but that's another thing. So what is a third leg? I think we talked about that. A third leg means a property, if somebody offers you something, it's a two-way exchange. It's not satisfactory to either of you or to one of the other parties. We need another property. Sometimes we can make a three-way deal. A lot of times paper balances it, okay? And we'll give you some examples, hopefully from our examples. How does this work? What I found statistically, if you take any transaction has less than 100% chance of closing. If you just artificially try to take numbers and say, he's a taker, he's a taker, he's a taker for this, and you go around in a circle, you're multiplying a bunch of numbers less than 1 times each other. It's not going to have much chance of success. But if you have a deal that will not happen without a third leg, bringing the third leg in now statistically shoots the chance of it closing up through the roof, okay? So a lot of times paper or cash. So sometimes you might have a deal and Tom is gonna show you a sort of a third leg deal when we talk about it. Sometimes the problem's financial, and a guy like Tom Van Erp can come in and say, hey, how about I just buy that note at a part of the deal? It'll solve the problem. We'll give you some examples of that work. In lieu clause, when you get a contract, you go ahead and sign the contract. You sign a binding contract. I'm gonna accept your property subject to finding something else in lieu of what you are offering, okay? And you can have a time frame in there or not, okay? Who is this to manage it? To manage your client, the seller. They've got to take it for their property. And now they've got a wide open time to wait and find what they want, okay? So both sides are gonna push and restrict us a little. But bottom line is, you're offering me something I don't want. Let me see if I can, so I have an example. I've got a campground that we're gonna have create paper here real soon. The person's offering money down and a big seller carry. My guy wants to do a 1031. This is what 1031 paper is basically. So we're gonna sign a contract that says we will accept your seller carry financing subject to finding something else in lieu of the seller carry financing. We're gonna go take that first note on a KOA campground and I'm gonna go buy something with it, okay? Now, all of you here might not know how to run a KOA campground, but every one of you knows how to go to the mailbox and pick up a check, okay? You can we can turn that into just mailbox checks for somebody and have the person who operates the KOA, wants to buy it, wants to operate it, come in there, and then my client can take that financial instrument and go get what he wants, okay? And so any seller carry deal, if your people don't want to sell a carry, you do a seller carry in lieu deal. If it doesn't happen, you don't find something in lieu, guess what? I couldn't find anything in lieu. We can't close because we can't find anything in lieu, okay? So that protects people a lot of ways. Does it really work? I can give you examples. Yes, it works. And how can the numbers help me track third legs? Okay, so when you go and somebody with package 125.3 offers you on 101 something, and you go and you look at 125.3 and I don't want it, I don't like it, but goodness, it's got 12 numbers. 12 people said they'd take that property. I'm gonna talk to every one of those 12 people if I'm not as lazy as I am. I'm gonna go talk to those 12 people and say which one of them, what do they got? And see if I want any of those, okay? And that's how the numbers help you find third legs. Another thing we call skidding your rig, or skidding someone's rig, okay? That's a Texas term for oil rigs. If somebody has a package that looks darn near exactly like one that you've got, and especially if it's one that's down your list and you're not gonna have time to present, you're gonna take their numbers and you're gonna write them on your package, okay? Because if it's a duplex in Tucson, and you've got a duplex in Tucson, I'm gonna take every number from that guy's duplex in Tucson, and I'm gonna call him up and say, guess what I got? I got a duplex in Tucson for you, okay? And that's skidding your rig, there's nothing wrong with it. You're just going out there on behalf of your client to go find that tape, all right? Okay, next thing we do, we're on my list of the agenda for this meeting and basically what you do at meetings. Next step, applying formulas. This can happen during the moderation or following the presentation. How the moderators work is we start with property, people, opportunity, and then the solution. Opportunity is problem, and opportunity are synonyms in real estate. That's the format of the moderator presentations. Formulas might come up during the solution. Write your ideas and formulas in written mini offers so the good idea is not lost. Okay, so at least scribble down enough to say a lease back or say something to let you know what you were thinking. And then when this is all done, you're gonna ask more questions, as always, to optimize the benefits. Once the negotiation's begun and you say, hey, we got a temporary thing, well, what would you folks really want to do? And some examples are valuation. Something might have two properties at $1 million, and you might decide that you can trade them both straight across at $750,000. All of those things are things to optimize benefits.
Yeah, and then don't forget that while everyone is the package being moderated one after the other, I at least have difficulty thinking about two things at once. And don't be afraid to write something that is probably stupid. but you need to get it out, and you can continue on afterwards,
Right,
but
and that's a great way to say, so what you're gonna do is we're gonna have presentations here where you, in order to be most effective, you gotta be able to focus on each presentation, which means casting the last one out of your head and not thinking about the next one. And just pay attention to this presentation to the point where you ascertain whether or not there's merit to you or not in this performance, in this particular one. You know, don't just have one that's really important and then miss the next 2 or 3, which might also have been important, just because of circumstances. Okay, what are formulas? There are books on formulas, a bunch of them. We won't go too much into more than we could. We'll give you examples of what we're gonna give you. A formula is a way to get a deal closed. Lowering or raising the price is the simplest formula. Every realtor at every franchise in America knows how to do that. Seller carry is a formula most brokers know, although, as Tom pointed out, I've met people licensed 20 years who don't know because it's been about 20 years since it was common in regular real estate. Exchanges often involve combinations of formulas. And remember, necessity is the mother of invention. If it can be done easily, do it that way. If it can't be done easily, still find a way to do it because your client still has a problem that needs to be solved. All right, next, okay, we're gonna go over this quickly. I thought we were to Tom sooner, but we'll go through the creation of wealth formula here first. This is in many of the books. Bob Steele has a book of about 300 formulas. Royce Ringsdorf has one. Virgil Opfer, I think. If you have, Mike, you had a question?
Vidar.
Oh, Ken Vidar also has.
The website.
Oh, Ken Vidar has one, yeah, on the website as well. So, creation of wealth is usually one of the first formulas in a book. What this is you've got a property. I don't have a little pointer, but you've got a house here that's worth $250,000. You own it. You owe $100,000 to the bank. That's this lower one here. You owe this $100,000 to the bank, okay? And you like the house, you want to keep the house, but you really like the fourplex across the street that's $400,000. So what you're going to do is you're going to, and you could get a new loan, let's assume, or they can sell it period. You're going to create a $100,000 second note against your $250,000 house, subject to the $100,000 first, okay? So it's going to be a second. And you're going to use that as a down payment. And you're going to give it to the owner of the fourplex, along with asking them to sell or carry for $300,000, or just go to the bank and give them $300,000 of money. Easiest example is just $300,000 of money. So, in the end, the people who have the fourplex, they could go trade forward, but we're just going to talk about how this works. So, you had a house with worth $250,000 with 100 debt. You have a fourplex worth $400,000 with $100,000 new note and $300,000 new debt. Okay. You started with $150,000 equity in the house. You ended up with the same $150,000 of equity. Okay. You didn't suddenly, by doing this, miraculously make the value of something change and create equity. No. You've still got $50,000 in the house left. That's the little roof there on the house there. And you have $100,000 of equity in the fourplex, because that upper yellow one here, this note here is really secured over there. Okay? So this property now has $300,000 of debt, it's worth $400,000. Your house has $200,000 of debt, it's worth $250,000. You didn't do anything except redistribute your equity and acquire another property. So you went from owning $250,000 of property to $650,000. So how does this create wealth? Well, it didn't instantly in the exchange. How do you create wealth in real estate is by turning the pages on the calendar, okay? You get this set up, you turn the pages on the calendar, instead of making money on $250, you're making money on $650. If the market goes to hell, guess what? Wasn't a great thing, smart thing to do. You know, as long as you hang on it is, but this is for this is the creation of wealth, this is a wealth building formula. Any questions about creation of wealth? I know that's kind of quick. This is available in the books. This is available to any of you who want to go over it again. I'm happy to talk to you about it. This is sort of a prelim before the 1031 paper kind of thing. All righty, next. All right, this is what we do now. Guess what? It's all you, Tom.
Oh, I see.
Did
That was
anybody
called
have-
Formula Stories with Tom Van Hert. All right, Mr. Van Hert, let's talk about, so on this slide, I talked about your deal and anything else, trades you've done, Murfreesboro.
Oh, yeah.
And then the bottom ones are other ones I've done, so.
Okay, well, you know,
So this one's-
many new people think that, you know, you all come all the way to Vegas, you gotta deal in big deals. You know, there's a lot of people who gotta deal in $5 million deals and all that. We're all big shots. Let me tell you how you can make money on small deals through this group. About 5 years ago, my son-in-law, Joe, he had been broke. He had been broke in Crested Butte, Colorado, as a developer. And he, for a couple of years, stumbled around and he flipped houses and did whatever to feed his family, feed my daughter, you know, and my grandkids. And one day he comes to me and he says, you know, I want to do something. This is, you know, I gotta do something. I want to come back. So I had just recently, this was about 6 years ago, become enthralled with mobile home parks. And I began to realize that the Midwest, we live in Colorado, which is ridiculously popular and hot market-wise. I had become enthralled with the Midwest, you know, Illinois, Michigan, and all those places, where the numbers for income property were much better. So I said to Joe, if you will make offers and do as I say, I will support you while you do this. I'll support you for a year. If you will do what I say for a year. So we were going to go and make offers on mobile home parks. And Joe got on the phone and he searched LoopNet and all those places, especially LoopNet. And a couple weeks later he says, I think I've got something. He says there is a 38-space mobile home park in Murfreesboro, Illinois, which is some little hick town near Carbondale, Illinois, which is the southern part of Illinois, which is, it's kind of hokey there, you know? It's a little bit like West Virginia or whatever. I hope I'm not insulting anybody. Anyway, he says it's only $80,000. And for 38 spaces. It was half empty, so, you know, about 18 paying customers, or at least customers who were supposed to pay. Anyway, he says, shoot carry. Oh, good. 10,000 down, and something over 10 years or something like that. So we wrote up the contract. We hadn't gone there yet, subject to inspection. A couple days later, oh yeah, there was 10,000 down and over 10 years, full AM, etc. A couple days later, he comes back and he says, you know, I'm nervous. I don't have much money, and I don't want to lose it, and 10,000 is a lot of money to me. I don't want to do it. How would you do it? Well, there are certain circumstances in which you would do it. He said, well, I don't want to pay, I don't want to make payments. Okay. I said, why don't you ask her? The seller, by the way, lived in Alaska. She had previously lived in Murfreesboro, Illinois. She had moved with her husband to Alaska. And she was very anxious to sell. So I said to Joe, why don't you just ask her? Why do you have to make payments? I mean, I want to carry. You can do whatever you want. You can ask whatever you want. Anyway, the end of the story is there would be no payments for the first 12 months, and then it was amortized over 10 years or whatever. And she said, all right, I really want to sell, so I'll go along with this. So he purchased it on an Illinois land contract. Does anybody know what the advantage is of purchasing on a land contract if you are the purchaser? Does anybody know? Yes, sir.
You don't have to foreclose it, you can forfeit the contract without going through any legal process of court action.
Okay, so the question is, it's easier to foreclose without having to go, because Illinois is a note and mortgage state. But that's not the question I asked. I asked, is there an advantage to the purchaser? Al?
Well, if you should default, it never shows up on your credit report.
You're not signing a promissory note.
Right.
You're not personally liable.
Right.
Correct. Anyway, we closed that deal, or Joe closed that deal, and we went out there, with my motorhome. We drove out there and spent the night and talked to all the people, and we knew nothing about a mobile home park at that time. We said, okay, let's try this. So Joe started to collect payments from afar. He gave one of the tenants, made him manager and all that. And he says, wow, I'm making money. I don't have to make payments. I'm collecting rent. Great. So he then became thrilled with owning a park, and he went on to bigger and better things in Michigan. He became a substantial owner of mobile home parks. And a couple of years later, I think it was 3 years later or 4 years later, or 2 years later, 4 years ago, right? He said, I'm gonna get rid of this park. It's too small. I'm a big shot now. What do I need to screw with this small park? I said, well, why don't you sell it? So he said, yeah, I'm gonna sell it. I said, how much do you want? He said, I just want $125,000. Just get me out, give me my cash, and I'm gonna pay off this woman. Let's just get it over and done with. That's the problem. Sell it. He couldn't sell it for $125,000 cash in Murfreesboro, Illinois. If you really throw a rock far, you hit the Ohio River in Kentucky. Anyway, he tried. He didn't really try very hard. He just put it on LoopNet, and he doesn't even answer his phone half the time. So I said, why don't you just give it to me? Okay? So I became his agent. And I first of all looked at the price and everything, and I said, it's worth $300,000. 8 cap, $300,000, what the hell? Own a care. So I presented it to our state meeting and presented it as a mobile home park with 8 cap. And some Sharpie came up and said, I want to buy this park, but I ain't paying you no $300,000. I will only offer you $200,000. Right? 100% done. 100% financing. I said, okay. Why would a guy like you, who lives in Colorado, do with a mobile home park all the way in Illinois? And this Sharpie was Blake Allen. And I said, Blake, what in heaven's name do you want to do with a mobile home park all the way out there in Illinois? He says, well, I have a partner. Oh. In Illinois. I said, oh. So I said, Blake, not so fast. What else do you own? Okay, that is a magic question to always ask what else do you own? And he said, well, I have this duplex in Colorado Springs. It's got a lot of equity in it. We looked at it. And I will put that up as additional collateral. I said, oh, so your contribution to this deal is to sign your name and to mortgage your duplex, and the other party, what's his name?
Noah.
Noah. He will be the manager. I said, oh, that sounds good. So we did that deal. There were payments of $1,000 a month, I think, and no money down. So we closed it at the attorney who had prepared the installment land contract, or the Illinois land contract. And that attorney said, well, wait a minute now, you're going to want him to sign a note and a mortgage? In Illinois, you should never do that, because then you can't foreclose. I said, well, they're going to sign personally. And I asked Blake, I said, you're going to pay, aren't you? I said, I know who you are, and I know who your partner is. And Blake says, yes. And we had to do it that way because it's a note, because in Colorado it's a note and deed of trust. So we put that deal together, and excuse me, and Joe said, well, I don't want to do this deal. I want cash. And I said, you said you wanted $125,000, right? He said, yes. So my pension plan buys and invests in own and carry notes. So I bought this $200,000 note for $125,000. He got the money. He was happy. My pension plan was collecting $1,000 a month plus a $70,000 discount over a 3-year period, because it's a 3-year loan. So then, about 6 months ago, I was trying to raise a lot of cash because I am heavily involved in fix and flip lending in Denver, where the market is just hotter than hell, like it is in many places, and that business takes up gobs of cash. So a member of our exchangers came up and had a house for sale in a suburb of Denver for $400,000, I think it was, doesn't matter. It was free and clear. And that guy, that member of our group, was retiring and he needed income. So he and I swapped. I gave him $400,000 worth of notes, and I had the house, which I sold right away to one of my flippers, and everybody's happy. A stupid little deal, you know, where Blake and his partner, I don't think they even want to sell it for $300,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth more than that now.
Right.
If someone wrote us a check, it would be hard to pass up. It'd be hard for him to pass it up.
So you can start a deal like this with very little or nothing. And you can afford to do this over different places. You don't have to have multi-million-dollar properties. Are there any questions about that deal?
And you don't actually have to go to Illinois ever.
For sure. Yes,
Do you
sir.
have any more mobile home parks like that?
Yeah.
We got one in Murfreesboro.
All you have to do is look on the mobile home park store, and there's hundreds of them, little mobile home parks. There's millions, I'm exaggerating. There are many parks for sale in small towns to this very day. Yes, there are. We own 5 parks, 4 in Michigan and 1 in Farmington, New Mexico. And we only purchased that a year and a half ago. So, I mean, they're out there, 80 spaces. And Farmington is not a little hick town, I've discovered.
No?
They have 2 Walmart supermarkets.
When are you getting rid of that one?
Ooh,
Sorry?
When are you getting rid of that one?
We're not getting rid of anything.
Call me.
We have 2 parks for sale in Michigan or under contract, And that's another story. Yes, sir.
Okay, it sounds like one of the secrets, I've heard this before from Blake and other people, that boots on the ground, you need management to run these parks to make it,
Yes.
make it
Yeah.
fly. Am I right?
My son-in-law manages it from Crested Butte, Colorado. He goes biking every day and skiing.
But I mean somebody in the park or in the town, am I right on that?
Yeah,
Oh,
Absolutely.
sure.
How difficult
Oh,
is
sure.
that?
I'm just saying, I wasn't finished answering you. We're now changing over subject to mobile home parks. We have learned to manage them from afar for openers, okay? And in one park, we don't even have a manager, we have a greeter. And that greeter
Just gets paid less than a manager.
it's less than a manager. And for instance, just to give you an idea how we operate and how we've learned how to do this over the years, every month, that greeter has to mount a camera on her truck and drive through the park totally, so we know what it looks like. Tenants are trained or required to pay at the local bank, and we have account numbers for every one of them. I mean, we've got that organized, and you will be surprised, because if you tell people you own a mobile home park somewhere, they say, oh, how do you handle the drug addicts? If I told you I had a nice apartment building in somewhere in Michigan, would you ask me the same question? And you probably wouldn't, because you think of an apartment building as better than a mobile home park, as to have a better class of tenants. That's your thoughts. That's what most people think. It ain't so once you get rid of the bumps. It ain't so. It's a country, what am I trying to say? A country club for the less well off. It is better.
Minus the golf course and the pool.
Minus the golf course and the pool, because they are less well off. But there's a fence around the place, there's an entrance. It is safer. These people watch for each other. One park, we have a third generation family living there. The parents of the parents bought their place in the 60s.
Is that to get us depressed or depressed?
I'm sorry?
Is that to get us depressed or impressed?
So, your question, I understand your question. It is different than you think. I mean, we became experts at it. I mean, we went to seminars on it, 2-day, 3-day seminar on how to do this and all that. So, I can't answer your question in just 5 seconds. But there is a lot to it, and we learned.
But I'll answer this question, Jim. The reality is, if Noah's not in Illinois, I don't do the deal.
But that was the deal.
Also sounds like
If I don't have someone I trust there, I'm not gonna do the deal.
You've got systems in place and organization, that's key, it sounds like.
Absolutely, right. But it's like owning rental properties out of state, right?
I've done this technique, and I'm not sure whether anybody else has utilized it. So talk about your mobile home court. You're looking at a yield. Let's say you're saying this is going to be a 5 cap. Other party
Please
doesn't.
don't use that word 5 cap.
10.
No. The 10 ain't around anymore, but go ahead.
So the buyer is nervous about this because obviously they don't have the experience to run the operation.
Correct.
So what I've done is I've had the seller master lease the property back for, let's say, a year to 2 years, and then the party, then that master lease falls off, but the buyer then says, okay, I'm going to be able to see the real numbers, I'm going to feel comfortable,
Sure.
I'll do the deal. And you move forward with that because you're giving the security to the buyer that they're looking for, but it's on you to guarantee that in a way for that 2-year period. Have you utilized that to establish a value that makes it better than what you would have get if there was no master lease guarantee back?
Okay, that is all wonderful, and you're right. But we are bottom feeders, and we buy fixer-upper parks. And first thing we want to do is the owner to get the hell out of the way and let us take over. It is like a poorly managed apartment building. You don't want the previous manager or owner in charge, and especially with a park, it is vital that.
Although I do see, and I see the specifics where Tom's talking about it because there are issues exactly what he's addressing, but the other thing what Michael's doing is he's creating a fixed income triple net kind of vehicle out of the,
Yes.
of a mobile home park, which is what
Yes.
people think about, so they took the variability out of it.
Right, yes, sir.
Todd, right?
So why would the owner risk putting a master lease for someone that's coming in as a rookie? Are they taking a discount on the rent roll so they
No, the
get?
seller is master leasing it back, the seller is maintaining possession.
That's what I mean, the sellers. Why would he risk that knowing that someone's coming in that's green? And I'm gonna, let's say it makes $1,000 a year, just to freeze the numbers.
Remember what I'm saying is that the master lease is by someone here, whether it's the old owner or the broker or someone, that's guaranteeing that you're gonna get a minimum of X rents. But if there's a surplus amount of rent, I get to keep it if I'm the master.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
And is the master leaser gonna stay and hold hands?
For that year to 2 year period only.
Okay, but I see what you're saying too. You want him gone because he's been
My
sitting on
seller,
the coin
we
machine
want
all the
it
time.
gone.
Right.
I mean, in
Depends on
fact,
what kind of park you're buying.
the seller was, in another part of the world, was so anxious to get out and move to the Philippines with his Filipino wife, and he was in the process of destroying the property that he had inherited from his father, and he was in the process of destroying it. I mean, when we went to our due diligence, we asked, okay, what about this trailer, this customer? Oh my God, they're terrible people, and he was just telling us how awful they were. And then I went and talked to the terrible person. He says, oh, this manager, this owner, please buy this park. I mean, it is different. You gotta,
So
you gotta
same
get
thing,
them out of
and it really depends on the motivation of the seller. When I bought a self-storage facility, she just wanted not to show up anymore. So I did the same thing. I guaranteed her a certain amount of rent. Look, you can't make it work what you're doing. Your customers are pissed off for that reason. They don't like you anymore. You're 80 years old. You need to move on. Let me come take care of it. And whether I pay you or not, you're losing it already or mismanaging it already. So it's a better situation for them to just take hands off and let somebody else come to take care of it.
buying fixer-upper properties requires new control.
Right, and I guess what this gets back to, and that's basically the gist of what we do as far as real estate, just about the people, not really about the property. So we can talk about the specifics about the property, but you notice the discussion and the variables had to do with the individual people that were involved. And so that's really what it is. We set these parameters up, and then you, by knowing the people, determine what's the best thing. Because Michael probably had a better operator and a better park than Tom had envisioned in most cases when you buy a distressed park. Because when you buy a distressed park, you know, they're not good managers, pretty much. And that's part of the situation.
9.8 out of 10 times.
Yeah, most of them, they're not good managers. All right, so.
Okay, so are there any other questions about that deal?
About the
Can you
Murphy's
see, the Murphy, can you see how you can do something like that with almost no money and create quite a bit of profit? I mean, you could live off it for 2 years.
And then you can be the next step of the story because we own it, we'll move it somewhere else. So,
okay, you go ahead.
I'm gonna go ahead. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through some formulas. We have about a little less than an hour left. I'm gonna go through these examples quickly because we then have some questions. David Sanchez in my office, I'd asked him, what questions do you have after having come to the meetings for about a year or so? And so I've got some questions he asked, which are probably your questions as well. Murfreesboro example, he showed you that everybody won. There's nobody there that's not happy with it. We make a good income from the thing. We're thrilled. We've got a fully financed park. We're going to make $100,000+ on it. Next, more of a trading a note for houses. So an example that I did, and I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, and I expect if you want more info to follow up, we have other videos that go over these examples a little bit more in depth. I own some cabins in Woodland Park, Colorado, which I believe are in the book now at $950,000. I created a $600,000 first note and deed of trust against them, and I used that first note and deed of trust to buy 11 houses and a duplex in Belleville, Illinois, totally with management in place. So, first of all, why did I do this? And, you know, what are the benefits? So, I had about $450,000 of private debt. One of the things I do for people, you know, hard money types or private lenders, people like that, is they charge more interest than you could normally you'd pay the bank, but they don't have yield maintenance, they don't usually have the same points, they don't have all of the other horrible things that you do. I would much rather pay a Tom Vinner 10 or 12% than I pay Wells Fargo 4 or 5. Because if it's commercial property with yield maintenance and you don't go to the term of the loan, you'll see the terms aren't that much different. So that's just a little aside. So I had $450,000 of private money from somebody who wants to keep making 12% on those cabins. I didn't want to keep it there. I want to just keep acquiring more stuff. So I created a $600,000 note, and I went and I bought a bunch of houses, and I just had to move my $450,000 of debt to it.
Does everybody know what creating a note means?
I guess I'll be going through that. So how we create.
Does that mean a typewriter in the old days?
Yeah.
And you did type up a note, and then mortgage or a deed of trust.
In Colorado, we're very fortunate. Our state Department of Regulatory Agencies, in addition to standard contracts that we have, also provides us with a standard note and deed of trust acceptable to all our public trustees in all of our counties. That's something most people don't have. Anyhow, I can get on the computer, literally. All I had to do to create that paper was I wrote a promissory note and a deed of trust on the property I own in Colorado, and that's it. I sign it, and then it gets notarized. Michael?
The trustor presumably is you or your entity that's.
No, we're a public trustee state, so we have a public trustee.
Okay, who is the beneficiary of that note?
The beneficiary of the note becomes the owner of the property I'm acquiring. So what happens is you now get the payments on them. So Ted Blank, who we all know, owned a bunch of houses in Illinois. He likes paper. I gave him a $600,000 note, that's 6% interest only with a 5-year balloon. And I write, actually the note holder who has it now, I write them a check for $3,000 a month out of the income from, you know, the cabins, but it could just as well be the income from the houses I bought. So
During the bad old days, I had a sort of a partner, or at least we shared the management. We owned a lot of houses, and we needed money. So I would type up a note made payable to him for $50,000, and he would type up a note for $50,000 payable to me on his house. And we, back then, we used to put an ad in the paper to sell those loans. And that's how we found investors, and that's how we sold our own loans, and that's how we made money, or that's how we lived.
I'm acquiring multifamily by buying a liquor store. Here's just a typical talking to people, okay? There's multifamily in Manitou Springs I wanted to acquire. It's right in the middle of town, right across from the park. Half a dozen people wanted to own it. He didn't want to sell it. And I asked if he didn't want to sell it yet, even though he'd sold another multifamily. He'd already had his place in Oregon. I said, I talked to the guy, I said, hey, why do you sell me that multifamily? He says, well, I'm not going to sell that multifamily until I sell the liquor store. I said, okay, I'll buy the liquor store.
Does everybody understand that or not?
It's a must take.
It's a must take. Yeah, the liquor store was a must take. I bought the liquor store and the apartment complex. Asked him what he wants. Oh, he wants $500,000 in money and he wants $1 million note. Okay, because he wanted $500,000 in money and $1 million note, good secure first position note. I was able to acquire the multifamily and the liquor store without putting any money out of my pocket whatsoever. Okay, so
how many houses do you now own in Illinois?
So I own 11 houses in a duplex in Belleville. I own.
Okay.
How many houses in Murfreesboro? I don't know.
Right.
That changes.
By the way, that is a totally different area than the houses that Blake owns in the greater St. Louis area, metropolitan area. It's a different deal.
But anyhow,
those houses are.
Whether it's there or not, these are just examples I'm noting. Now, what's created paper just what Tom's saying, anytime, and what we did with creation of wealth, if you wanna buy something and you've got equity anywhere, or even if you don't, you can create a note and you can go buy something with it, okay? All you have to do is make sure you pay all those payments, okay? When you sign a promise to pay, you have to pay, okay? As long as you do that, you create a solid financial instrument, anyone will take it. It's, you know.
And of course, you don't have to pay. You can type up a note without personal liability.
Without payments.
Where you basically say, here's the collateral, I hope you like it, I want you to like it, but I don't want to be personally liable.
That's called
And
non-recourse.
then you have to probably pay a little more or whatever, but nobody says that you have to be personally liable if you sign a note. Banks are a little funny about that. I don't blame them.
But yeah, you can get non-recourse financing. What that just means is that, what Tom says, the only place they can go to have recourse is the property itself. They can foreclose on the property. They can't come after you individually.
The holder of this note shall look no further than the property for repayment.
Right.
I have a quick question. Most of these you're describing, I'm guessing, are first position notes, right? What is the,
Yeah,
are you guys
these
active
ones are
with
first-
second positions? Could I put a second on my house for 100 grand to use as a down payment to buy your mobile home park, as an
Of
example?
course, that's what the creation.
Right, theoretically, except now you're getting involved in your personal residence and other issues.
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, the answer is, as long as it's not the house you live in with your wife and kids and subject to Dodd-Frank and all that, anything else, yeah, if you've got a piece of land, you got anything else, we can do it, but your own house is the one we generally don't do.
When you do that, the purpose of the loan is critical. If you can borrow against your personal residence without Elizabeth Warren getting involved, as long as the purpose of the loan, and it is clearly so stated by both parties, is for business purposes.
Correct. But again, yeah, and that, so have an attorney, all of these things, you know, if you don't have all of the statutory forms where you're entitled by your state and your association to use them, you know, have an attorney help you.
Whenever I deal out of state in a transaction like that, I always hire a local attorney.
Right.
I kind of like attorneys.
That's always
They
the-
protect me against the seller or buyer, whatever.
And so so let's move to the next one, 1031 paper. This is the thing, I've got a YouTube channel called 1031 paper. We're creating a marketplace for it. What it is when someone wants to buy something from you with the seller carry,
You're gonna have to go slow, Blake.
Sorry.
Because people will, it's hard to understand.
I know. So you have a property you would like to sell, and you have a buyer, and they need a seller carry, and you don't want to carry that. You want to do a 1031 because you need to do a 1031. You can, just like you use these Federal Reserve notes in your pocket, these regular dollars, you can pass that note deed of trust through the 1031 process. So you can sell a property, carry the financing, and still do a 1031. Because you're gonna take the paper as the vehicle that you're gonna go to the next property. If you have enough money in your pocket, you can just buy that note out of the exchange and now have a full basis on the new property that you're buying and collect the note. But if you don't have the extra cash to write that check, you can go buy your new property with the note. And that's what 1031 paper is. And that's just a created paper
Becomes
secured by
personal
something you're
property,
selling.
And you can exchange personal
Yeah.
property.
It becomes personal property, but it's held by the qualified intermediary, so we don't want it to become personal property. And then the question is, for your CPA, it may become an installment sale if you hold the paper. Again, that's a CPA question. Next one there, more formulas. Okay, we'll do this real quick. Tom, in 2009 or 10, shows up at the meeting with a 4-foot 2x4. Not this guy, okay? This young fella right here shows up at this meeting, and he's lecturing people, and he's carrying around a 4-foot 2x4. Okay, this is because he's a hard money lender. We were at a time when the market, you know, the curve usually goes left to right that way. The curve sometimes goes downwards. Okay, when it's dropping off, you know, knives, falling off the table kind of thing. he still had hard money loans, okay? He was realistic about the price. Some of his borrowers weren't. He says, you lower the price. If they don't lower the price, you hit them with a 2x4, okay? And so he was willing to take a loss as he recognized the market going down, correct, Tom? He was saying, listen, it was worth this much. I lent you this much. It's now worth this much. I'll take that much, okay? Let's go. Let's get rid of it. And that is what.
Well, that is a formula for bad times.
Yeah, that's a formula for bad times.
We don't talk about bad times, but of course they will come back someday.
Right.
Who knows when?
Right. The next formula I always like, and many of you in the room have witnessed it, raise the price is a great formula. It always works, okay?
I think that went past people.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Maybe we need to
When
explain
you raise
that.
the price, it always works, depending on how you benefited. One is perception in the market. The Murfreesboro example is another perfect example, okay? When we thought he's asking 300,000, and then we get at 195 or 200,000, good man, good job, okay? He got it for 104, okay? It always works. Borrow my equity is another formula. Anyone here in the room who has free and clear equities or big amounts of equity may be willing to allow you to pledge it as collateral for a loan in exchange for part of your deal. Okay, that's just called a borrow my equity formula, just to let you know what's out there.
I think the person who did that is probably by far the biggest. He just was in the room, but he
Yeah,
just
lives
walked
or
out.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Will
Michael,
Jones-
are you here?
Yeah. LP, so
Okay.
Mike put up a bunch of collateral that's in several of the videos. Got Will Jones rescued a nursing school or developed, multi-million-dollar nursing school because the people in this group pledged collateral, and guys like Tom lent money on the collateral as a way of getting money. One of my favorites always is land plus cash equals paper. You got a piece of land you want to get rid of, give me or other people a call, add an equal amount of cash to it, we'll give you a note of deed of trust against something. That's how we end up with a lot of extra pieces of spare land. Trade land for a second note. So guess what? I got these pieces of spare land I got from doing that other formula. Any one of you young folks, and I've told Andrew, I think this, and some other people, I have pieces of land in the book or other places. I will trade it for a second note on that thing that you want to buy. Okay? That's your down payment. Okay, so.
Maybe we should, I don't know whether Michael would want us to talk about that. Michael, are you around?
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk about it for a minute,
Okay,
if
yeah.
I may. Will Jones, some of you may know who he is. He is really the father of this group. And he is coming tonight at the cocktail party. And he wanted control of a nursing college in Salt Lake City. He didn't have any money. He partnered up with Mike Lipster. Mike owns property in Montana, free and clear. And will borrow money from people like me and several people, about 5 of us actually. And he didn't have any collateral, but he borrowed the collateral from Lipster. Lipster said, I'll lend you this collateral so that Tom Vanner can make a loan to Will Jones. Will Jones signed personally. Lipster put up the collateral, and 5 of us did that on a significant basis. And that's how Will got control of this college. And in fact, 2 years ago, just before COVID, Will was so thankful that this was done that he took all 5 of us, including himself, he called us the Wolf Pack 6, to my home country of Amsterdam, of Holland, on a all expenses paid trip, first class, all the way. That's how we got paid in addition to our interest.
And then the rest of the stories we'll leave for later. No, absolutely no. And there's the perfect, that's the classic example, probably the biggest one we've done in this group that fits that kind of formula. And it works great, and he's very wealthy, because of it. Trade land for buy with somebody else's property. That's just what we're talking about right there. All right, next.
Oh, what a burden, taxation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cash is a depreciating asset that comes with the burden of taxation. Everybody knows that if someone gives you $1 and you have to pay 30 cents to the government, you should go ahead and pay them, but that's its own thing. Cash is liquid and universally accepted. So basically the first one, cash is bad, it depreciates, but it's liquid. Notes bear interest. They're usually secured by bigger assets. They're generally guaranteed by the borrower, not always. And new loans that aren't these kind of notes that we do often need underwriting to generate the cash. Our kind of notes don't require the same kind of.
Most notes bear interest.
Most
Is it
notes
no?
bear
People
interest.
always say, oh, you have to charge interest.
You don't.
No,
have to
you
charge
do not.
interest. Right, exactly. Michael.
Yes, sir.
I was going to mention one of the things that you can do is have somebody act as a guarantor for a loan and get a piece of the deal just by doing the guarantee.
Absolutely. And so the borrower may not be strong enough, someone can come in just with the guarantor signature and get a piece of the deal. We're doing it.
It's a common
syndication
practice. Several people not in this room, but several people who are members of this group and of the other SEC made a significant living co-signing loans, big loans at commercial banks.
Renting credit.
I know one guy who really did that very successfully. Yes, sir.
What would be like an average amount that you would ask to do that? To get a
Could you repeat that? Could you use?
Stephen asked how much would somebody ask for or be willing to get, and that's got to be negotiable. That's not something we can probably talk about in the group, because that would be fixing probably.
Between the parties.
Yeah, it's whatever you can get. One guy wants it cheaper, one guy wants it more expensive. You figure it out, but.
There are no standards.
No standards, yes. I guess that's the best thing. There are no standards.
Especially with Tom.
Here's how and these are just philosophies and what are they worth? Sellers should only take cash or pay taxes on needs other than real estate. But the stuff we're coming out. Seller can tend to be when the cash or the paper. The price is less important to the buyer with less loan costs and hassles, which allows you to create bigger or more paper. And the focus of everything we do should be on the benefits the seller seeks and buyer's ability to deliver those benefits. Which gets us back to Tom's question, why do they really want that cash? All right?
I just want to say one thing to the gentleman, is that there are people who made a lot of money signing these loans during good times. There are also people I know who lost everything because they signed personally and the collateral that was used was insufficient to pay the loan and the bank went after them. So
2008
it goes
happens.
both ways.
Yeah, it happens. Power of the room. This is the thing I'd like for all of you to realize. I think you realize it now just in this class, just in the power of who we have in the class talking about it. There's unbelievable power from all of us working together collectively, pulling in the same direction. Something that is unfathomable until you witness it. It is more than just a place to raise cash and buy or sell properties. That is one of my pet peeves. If you have something you're just looking to sell it for money, there's an internet for that, okay? We do a lot more than sell things for money.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course, you can say all the time.
Yeah, you know, I have a private money loan business. I make hard money loans. And I've been doing that for a long time. But people ask me, well, how did you get the money to start? Because I started my hard money loan business with no money. And I raised most of the money over the last 30 years from members of our local exchange group. All the guys who liked me, we'll use that word, it wasn't liking all that much. I used the loans I made as collateral. And I gradually built up my own equity, but I started the loan business with no money through our local exchange group.
Right, and so you can borrow money on a note. You can borrow against a note, you can sell some of the payments, you can sell the balloon, a whole bunch of things you can do with paper. It's unbelievably valuable. So the goal that we have is to get deals closed for the clients and the attendees. The moderators are going to ask questions to get answers to solicit interest in the set of benefits being offered. and to identify the order that is being placed. Okay, the person coming up here placing their order for their hamburger, all right? So what I'm gonna go through now is some multiple formulas I went through with the 28-unit apartment complex I have that ended up, paying off my house and ended up with a piece of land that Chuck has that he's bringing to the book. Let's start from the beginning though. I had a bunch of land that, we've gotten through in, one way or another, doesn't matter. I had a bunch of land and I was looking to build my portfolio. This was in 2006, okay, when the trees still grew to the sky back then. Everything was wonderful.
Just like now.
Just like now. The trees now are growing to the sky, except guess what? Trees don't grow to the sky, everybody, okay? They stop growing at a certain point. What I'm talking about with that, for those of you who may not know that language yet, the economy is going to do great for a long time, but it's not going to do great forever, okay? So what I did was I purchased this with a private blanket mortgage. So I went to a guy who's even worse than this one, who charged me even more money, and because he wouldn't do it, he was too cheap. Anyhow, I had about $1 million of land, and I was buying $1 million apartment complex. I did it fully financed. You put up my land, fully financed it with hard money, negative cash flow, all these things that people in the book tell you, oh gosh, you don't do those kind of things. Well, I did. I bought a nice 28-unit apartment complex. It had a lot of vacancy. I got that filled up right away. Not very far from where I live. 7 brick fourplexes, okay? Ground level, exactly what everybody wants. Built by a builder who kept them forever. I had 7 buildings on 9 lots, okay? Just by looking at it, by dumb luck, again, which is where we make our money, some of the property lines went right between the buildings. I was able to go to the assessor and do what we call an assessor subdivision. I think I'm bringing it up here, it's all right. Do what we call this assessor subdivision, and say, Mr. Assessor, instead of 1 tax ID number, I'd like 5. He looked at the map, said, sure, no problem. So I turned the 28 units into 3 4plexes and 2 8plexes, okay? I refinanced, so as the economy was limping, okay? We're going in 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, okay? Trees got cut down, those ones that were growing to the sky and everything, revisited. So I refinanced 2 of the 4plexes and into separate little 1 to 4 unit financing, and actually did sale leasebacks. I had other people, because at that time I didn't have the ability to go do that. I had some other people, clients come, buy 2 of the 4plexes. I did a master leaseback, gave them the yield they needed. At that time, all they had to do was fog up a mirror. It didn't cost them anything, and they got a yield, okay, from getting the loans. The other 20 units, I had a hard money lender who was a client, who became a client, and then no longer a client. He managed to turn a $240 million line of credit into a $9 billion bankruptcy in the process of this. But to start with, I had him refinance the 20 units. I kept the 2 4plexes separate because I knew that way I could keep the apartment complex, keep control of it, no matter what happened. He went bankrupt. I owe him $1.4 million. I negotiated, he'd take a $600,000 payoff. I went to the marketing session and I created a $650,000 12% interest-only first position loan secured by 20 apartment units. And one of the Sharpies, as he calls them, the smart people in the room, Ted Blank, said, I'll do that. Ted Blank bought that note for $650. And guess what happened for me as well? $1.4 million debt, $650.
Income.
Yeah. Shut up.
I knew that question. I knew somebody would question that.
We'll just ignore that part of the question, okay? We don't want to address that right now. Anyhow, the debt was reduced, okay? You do need a way to offset that reduction in debt, okay? We don't want you to get into that. So what I did is then I made a new package, okay? Because now I've got a property that has 2 4plex loans on 2 of them, and 20 units at $650 to Ted. I still owed maybe like 200 or something on each of the 4plexes. So I had about $1 million I needed. So I took it to the market session and offered it out for a discount sale lease back. Okay, the thing was worth a couple million. I said I would really love to sell it to you for a lot less than that and buy it back from you, and I want you to help me refinance it. So I found two nice gentlemen here. One of them had 20 lots in Cortez, Colorado that Chuck's bringing the meeting, and also 670 acres in the middle of nowhere in Pershing County, Nevada. It's actually nicer than that, it's nice hills and all. But, you know, really just holding the world together. One at 400,000, the other at 250,000. Both of those people, I think, I don't know both of them, but the 400,000 and 20 lots, Steve Gallagher, who'll be here at the meeting, he made a loan back, you know, before when times were good, you know, through this whole crisis, had to foreclose on it, and was holding these lots that really, you know, I'll tell you right now, weren't worth and still aren't worth the $400,000 that he had lent, okay? But he wanted to recoup his $400,000, and he could do that without having a taxable event. So I said, Steve, and then John Tyler, another guy, I said, Steve, I'll give you $400,000 for your land, and John will give you $250 for your land, but this is how we're doing it. I'm going to take the 2 pieces of land in, along with a new loan. We're gonna master lease it with the option to buy it back. Several years later, I exercised the option and sold it, and I still have some of the land. Right now, let's switch to Chuck's slides, if you could.
Now, if your head is spinning, if you are new and your head is spinning with all this mumbo jumbo, you've got to realize that the only way you start thinking about this is to not be alone. You know, that's why we have these meetings, so you can socialize and strategize and talk about these deals, because deals like that aren't made just when he's sitting in his home office in the basement or whatever, talking to himself.
I needed other people to do this.
You need other people to really give you feedback. That's one of the things that I don't like Zoom. Sorry, Zoom people, but you know,
no, absolutely.
That's the benefit.
Right.
And
right. If I had not closed deals and helped Steve and John with other situations, they probably wouldn't have stepped up and said, "Hey, I want to do this deal." Okay. I mean, they may have because of the benefit. Because
and coming here is not enough. You know, I live 30 miles away from Denver in the mountains, and yet I go every day into the city and have lunch with a friend and talk about our business and strategize and on and on and on, because otherwise nobody can do your deal unless they are in that mindset.
Right, right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sell it, I'm going to lease it back, and I'm going to buy it back. Okay? Because I don't want to get rid of my apartments. I want to keep them. I just need to refinance them. I had a loan problem. I had a lender problem. We had some guys with mustaches. We talked about mustaches, right? Cortez, Pershing County, Nevada. I have to take them. Next. Okay. I really love Chuck's picture of our real estate professionals. This is what we all look like. And you want to do what? So get to the next one. All right, so I sold it to them for $1,750,000, and I leased it back at 6% absolute triple net. I paid everything, so they got a 6% yield. So the $400,000 of land, he got $2,000 a month. Okay, that's 6% triple net. I'm going to buy it back at the same price. I sold it to him for $1,750,000. I'm buying it back for $1,750,000. Okay, go ahead. So on the buyer's side, they had to go get a $1.1 million Fannie Mae loan. Just as an aside, when I paid the yield maintenance and sold this thing, if you really look at the cost of a 4.6% Fannie Mae loan and you don't go to term, it's about 9%. So just, you know, when someone offers you an agency loan, my own personal opinion, don't take it. And, you know, they got $1,100,000 Fannie Mae loan. I also took the land and those lots as the down payment. So I got $1.1 million in money. It's missing that extra zero still, Chuck. So $1.1 million in money, plus I got the 670 acres and I got the 20 lots in Cortez free and clear. Okay, so that's what I got instead of $1,750,000 in money. Okay, I used the $1.1 million and I paid off my loan. Okay, I had a little bit of change left, but not very much. I got 670 acres in Nevada free and clear, and I got 20 lots in Cortez, Colorado free and clear. What I did now, just in May, and this is, you know, the life-changing kind of moments every one of you will have if you stay in this group long enough. I sold those apartments for $3 million, okay? I exercised my option at $1,750,000 and sold them the same day for $3 million, okay? It cost me some money. I cleared more than $1 million in the bank. I paid off my house, okay? Back to the tax thing, Michael, how can I do this? Why didn't I do all the regular formulas? I rolled into this year with over $2 million in net operating losses, carry forward losses. That's the only reason this can be done this way, is because of the hell I went through to get here, okay? Right? You don't get $2 million worth of losses without losing $2 million. Just saying, okay? All right. Bam, I love it. So straight, free and clear. You can't see the whole thing. I got my lots and I got my 670 acres. So go to the next one. Okay. Can we help you? Okay, this is back to what Chuck's whole point is here, okay? When we look at this land, okay, look at how much benefits I got, okay? Does it matter if that land has any value at all? I tell you what doesn't matter to me. I'd do it if that land had no value, okay? If it were 2 bags of dog food at $400,000 and $250,000, I'd still do this deal, okay? Bonus is, guess what we've got? We still got 20 lots in Cortez. I have the 670 acres probably traded for a project in Indiana, but I'll move the project in Indiana because I'm not a builder or developer. As Chuck will tell you, that's not my skill set. But what Steve Gallagher did for me and what John Tyler did for you, I'm in a much better position now to do that than I was then, okay? Steve Gallagher was in a strong position financially. John Tyler as well. They were able to go get, as tenants in common, so they came in, so you know the nuts and bolts. They bought this as tenants in common, one putting in 250, one putting in 400, keeping all the numbers where they should. They didn't have a taxable event because their basis was higher than that when they went into them, okay? So their end of it was all safe with that. But what I'm saying and what Chuck's proposing is, listen, it doesn't matter, it didn't matter to me if any of this land had any value because of the extra benefits. I expect to have to deliver a lot of benefits and receive a lot of benefits from it, but I expect to have to deliver a lot of benefits in order to get somebody to take this property, okay? There's gotta be someone out there who is very much in a situation similar to what Blake Allen was, 5 years ago or however long it was when we did this, okay? I'd like to find that person. I'd like to give them 20 lots in Cortez as a down payment. Get somebody like Tom Van Arp or somebody to join with me, and we're gonna make their dream come true. And in the meantime, guess what? I'll get that $400,000 out of that Cortez lots. And somebody else, the next person will too. And they're not worth it. Michael?
I was just gonna mention on the
Quick,
debt forgiveness income. So when you discount a note, well, you know this, of course, you discount a note, that discount is income, ordinary income to you. But the way around that is you have that note purchase, whoever's giving you the money, by another person who buys the note and keeps the note alive, and then you do not have debt forgiveness income, but you have control over it, and you don't have the tax liability.
Right, and that is part of how we did it as part of the process. But yeah, that is part of it. But again, yeah, the forgiveness of debt. Here's another situation though. If I make $800,000, then I'm gonna have to pay maybe $250 or $300 in taxes. I probably still do it, right? Because 800 is more than 250 or 300. Alrighty, so yeah, there's your whole story. So now the land is in the book and ready to go. So okay, next. Follow up. Okay, call me, bug the hell out of me. Everybody else, be it like a dog with a bone. Don't give up until you brainstorm and exhausted all the possibilities, and then think of more ways of doing the deal. Don't forget notes, third legs, and other takers. Back to motivations. Cortez land example. Is that price on that important? Is that price on Cortez? Does that matter? Doesn't matter at all, does it? Didn't matter to me. Shouldn't matter to you. What are the benefits to a new owner? Damn near nothing. Okay, except what I bring. What were the benefits to me? I got a brand new, free and clear. Well, not brand new. I got my house. unbelievably nice house, free and clear, pretty beneficial. Didn't I get plenty of benefits already? I did, okay? My current motivation is the future. I don't know what these things are worth, but I tell you what, I can make your dream come true, and I bet I can make them worth what I paid for them. All right, now we're gonna switch a little bit, and Tom and I are gonna help answer Dave's questions, and if you guys have any other questions. David Sanchez, he's been with me about a year. He was a guy who did syndications for years. He taught a class back in April or January on syndications. A lot of people see him anyhow. He's been in this group about a little bit over a year. I asked him, you know, what kind of questions you have, Dave, that you haven't learned in the time you've had. His first question is, how do we build credibility with others in the room? That's a hard one that we had to think about, and I wrote the answer. Don't screw anybody, okay? Do what you say you'll do, and keep coming back. That's all you can do. If you go tell people how wonderful you are, that ain't gonna get you any credibility at all. Okay, now these are just standard questions we're gonna answer, and anybody in the room who wants to help. How do we write a contract for an exchange? You write the only contracts you're allowed to write as a licensee. In Colorado, we don't have an exchange contract. We'll use contracts. I'll do a contract to buy and sell and a contract to buy and sell simultaneously dependent on each other. The side benefit is I can say proceeds from the sale of one of them as the equity down on the other. The banker sees a single contract, says proceeds from the sale of this property, they go ahead and give you the loan. The closer closes it just like they would because you're moving equity. Same, the paperwork's all exactly the same. It's not very different is the answer, okay? Instead of exchanging for cash, you're exchanging for something else. You've already done thousands of exchanges. Every time you closed a deal, you exchanged for cash. Sorry about that. Are appraisals important?
Well, sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not.
Exactly. That's the answer we're going to get.
And,
always.
You know what MAI
You think they're
says?
always important?
No, benefit.
If you're getting a bank loan, it probably is.
I don't think they're always important.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so sometimes they may be, if you don't know something somewhere, sure, get an appraisal, but it's really about the benefits.
It's just another opinion.
Yeah, another opinion. Exactly. How do we move through a property quickly? Goodness,
you can't answer that.
Yeah.
I mean,
everything's so different on
One
this, but
step
the
at a
reality is-
time.
Yeah.
One step at a
Well,
time.
that would be one answer for
Right,
sure.
exactly.
I mean, and sometimes it takes a year.
Yeah, but sometimes you
A week, I mean,
sometimes
it
you
depends.
move it, you set it up, and it's gone before you close. I guess is part of what we're talking about.
It also depends on.
Sometimes you do it, you don't like the in lieu clause, you're not gonna even take it. You can move through it so quickly, you never even owned it, okay? What about offering multiple properties for one? Not a problem. You just have to make sure your CPAs and your qualified intermediaries and everybody keep track of
A
it.
good example would be Blake's 12 houses, 12 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, no, oh yeah, but that was for, no. But then one example is they offered me 2 pieces of land and a loan for my apartments. That's multiple for one, so we can do that. Are inspections important? Yeah, I would say inspections are important. Would you say inspections are important?
Very.
Did I say what?
Inspections are important.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why God created airplanes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why God created airplanes, because God did create airplanes. Anyhow.
And by the way,
Yes, you'll do due diligence on these deals just like you do every other one for your clients, okay? Just because it's an exchange and your buddy gave it to you, doesn't mean you don't go and make sure those tenants, you go get estoppel statements if it's appropriate. I mean,
and it's easier nowadays to, with Zoom and everything, to inspect a property. But, when it really gets down to it, you want to go there, and you better be almost sure that you're going to close. And if you're not, there's nothing wrong with asking the seller, let's say, for money, for expenses, to go out there. Hotel, airplanes. I've done that. I've made a loan, and I said, well, I will commit, but I want to see this property.
It's
And I
easier to
don't
get-
really, I'm not 100% sure that I want to do this. I say that to myself because of this, and this. I'll go look at it, but I want you to fund it.
The
Not
difference
at
is
the
the
time of
lender-
closing, but now. Write a check. Right.
Most people that with a lender are more willing to pay for the lender to go do the
Right.
due diligence trip.
It's
It depends
easier
on the
for me
offer
to
you're
ask for
offering
money.
and how to do it and how much due diligence they need on yours. But it's not unreasonable, like he says, if you gotta go look at it and it's far away, you know, that's a risk. So Dave's questions continue. What is paper? Okay, paper is any piece, any document that either transfers ownership or a share of ownership in a property to somebody else and involves usually a payment, usually an interest rate. It's an agreement between parties. We just call it paper. Usually it's notes, deeds of trust, contract for deed, MAG or master lease with an option. How do you create paper? It's, like I said, it's with the ink in your pen. Okay, you either have an attorney if it's in an area you're not approved to write it, or yourself. You just write it. It's really simple. Who holds the paper? That's the note holder or holder in due course. If you're seller carrying, you hold the paper until you give it to somebody else. You sign it over to them. Now, when you sign a note over to somebody, important thing Tom will tell you, when you sign a note over to somebody, you may want to go ahead and write, I'm signing this note over to Val without recourse. Okay? Because when you take a note from somebody else and you give it to a third party and you assign it to them and you don't say without recourse, you guaranteed that note. Okay? You're now the borrower. They're thrilled because they got the guy who owned the note now as the borrower. If you want to do that, you can, but you should get something extra if you're going to do it that way. So, what happens with a foreclosure with paper? The same thing anywhere else. Okay, in Colorado, you show where you asked them to pay, they didn't pay. You get, you know, they didn't pay for this amount of time. You made a demand to pay, they didn't pay. You know, you did all the things you have to do with the statute. You take it down to the public trustee and you say, here's my original note, here's my original deed of trust, here's the payment history, here's the letter where I told them, you know, pay, here's where they, you know, they didn't pay, please, Mr. Public Trustee, go foreclose. Colorado is an easy way to do it. Most states, you say, Mr. Attorney, guess what, the guy didn't pay me. He says, okay, bring me your paperwork. And then you write a check, and later you get a big check if you don't. Like, is property location important? It is. It's not the 3 rules of real estate, though, okay? So, yes, location, location, location. If it's got all 3 of them, it's important. And it's important sometimes, not always. What would you be, your answer to is property location important?
Well, that's kind of a dumb question. Whoever posed it. Come on.
Come on, Dave. Next question. Okay, this is a good question. Why is there so much land in the book? You can see why there's one piece of Cortez land in the book. Why is there so much land in the book?
Well, I don't really have an answer. I got to think about that.
Okay, land is hard to sell.
Doesn't cash flow.
It doesn't cash flow, and it is not really going up in value in many instances.
Yeah.
It is more used as change,
Currency.
if you will.
Yeah,
Currency land is another word.
Trading stock.
And another thing that I've found in, you know, doing this 35 years, when you're selling a piece of land, and I bet Steve England agrees to a certain extent, most of the time you put a sign on the land, and when the paint is so worn off that sign that you can barely get the person's number off of it, then that's gonna sell, okay? How do you get land sold? You buy with it. But yeah, why is there so much land? It doesn't have a lot, it doesn't have a ton of intrinsic benefits. And a lot of times when our client says, you know, what property do you not want? It's usually that piece of land.
I'll give you an example about BS land, as I call it. Not all land, but I'm talking about some land in the I once got control of a subdivision like you're talking about, and I used it to purchase owner-carry mortgages at a discount. And this is when interest rates were higher. And let's say you had a $100,000 mortgage, and you really didn't feel like paying more than $50,000 for that mortgage, and the seller wanted $75,000. I'd say, well, you know, I'll give you the 50 grand, and I'll give you this $25,000 piece of land. That's one way.
That's exactly land plus cash for paper. It's just doing it the other way around. He's doing it from the other side.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there's the formula that works. How do I use existing equity for down payment? We covered that in the creation of wealth formula. You just create debt against it.
I call it the cash plus trash formula.
Yes, cash plus trash. I'm trying to, you know, land plus cash is better. Okay, describe a JV. I don't know that we need to, I don't know about So joint venture means anytime two people get together, well, the same as a syndication for a purpose, that's a joint venture. Kind of joint ventures we do a lot of times here. For instance, the deal with Murfreesboro, okay, I put up extra collateral in a duplex. I'm not in Illinois, I don't want to do any work. Noah comes, he does all the work, he gets half ownership in a mobile home park by just doing all the work. So that's the kind of joint venture that I think Dave's talking about when we talk about this group. We're talking about cooperation between exchangers to get something accomplished. We all know there's syndications and all kinds of other joint ventures to deal with. Can I find partners for deals in the room? So Dave thinks more from the syndication point of view. Absolutely, you can find partners for your deals in the room. And most of us do deals with people in the room. What other networking is available for exchangers? We have local exchange groups. We have, there's a whole bunch of, that's a hard question, I guess. Most of you, how many people here have a local exchange group that they go to? Okay. And then the other communities don't, right?
That's less than half.
Yeah, it's less than
Raised
half.
their hand.
I know, and so the issue is, we no longer, as much as we'd like, have local exchange groups in all the different communities. We will help you with NCE, and I'm pretty sure the SEC will step up as well. We will backstop and support any new local groups that want to do.
Local exchange groups are really a treasure, and they are fragile. I mean, for instance, I live in Phoenix in the wintertime to escape where I live at 8,500 feet in Colorado. And Phoenix, 5 million people in Maricopa County
don't have
no exchange group. The last one was very active, but they went away about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know. I mean, and somebody tried to start it again, nothing. They're fragile, they need to be maintained.
Well, we have some real gems, like the Mile High Exchanges that meet every week. The Tucson group is another one with you guys. You've been around for 60 years. Our Pikes Peak Exchanges has been around. You know, the trophy's got 1963. So, we've been around.
Yeah, we meet every week in San Diego too. Another thing I'll throw out there is that a lot of these local exchange meetings since the last year and a half have gone virtual. OCE is a virtual meeting.
That's really
blown
up. Yeah.
I would definitely, and one of the things that we're looking to do here at NCE is have some sort of bulletin board where people can have as a reference for these other resources of these other local meetings. That still needs to be organized.
Sure.
So we have
Yes, sir.
Zoom meetings going on all the time, and it's really ballooned with the Zoom. Jim Buchanan.
On what you hit on, we took advantage of the COVID and we went Zoom, and I agree with you. I don't like Zoom. It's not as effective as face-to-face, but it allows us to spread out. So we changed the Tucson group, which was just a few people that met twice a month.
And used to be much bigger.
Yes, it did, and then, well, if you talk to Gunny, he'll say that when the 1031 came to be, it all went down. But, and we date back to about 1960, we found out. So we've changed it to ASREX, Arizona Real Estate Exchangers, and we haven't gotten a lot of participation as we hoped from the rest of the state, but we have got participation from the other states, Blake being one of them, Mile High being one, thanks to Neil over
I
here.
get your stuff.
And that's really worked out, and hopefully we can expand on this next year, so.
Let me get through the rest of these, so we're about done. Different types of benefits, hopefully we've done none of this. Is there anything else we gotta do? Go Ashley, let's see what else we got, we're about done with time. This is something we can talk about forever. The power of the room, okay? There's nothing, this room has changed most of our lives, okay? I know it's changed my life. I'm not sitting in a free and clear luxury hotel kind of house if it ain't for this group. The people, the formulas, the knowledge, the cooperation, okay? Not competition, we work together, we hook both sides of the wagon, we pull the same direction. And the experience, the number of people in this room, I've been doing this 35 years, and I'm way less experienced than a huge number of these guys. Here's my reference info. You got NCE, which these were from when I was teaching classes for other people. SEC, Mile High Exchanges, Pikes Peak Exchangers, and I think that's all we have with that. I have other formulas that we're going to that we can go over, and I have some other examples in there. But I think
12 o'clock exactly.
It is 12 o'clock.
There we are.
I think we
I
did
see
it.
that.
Thank you very much.